call is being recorded.
Hola, hermana.
Hola.
Where were we? Halloween decorating?
Yeah, it's really exciting.
A month.
I'm actually putting...
What is it, 20th?
Huh?
You're like 6 weeks early.
Well, you're not supposed to decorate for Halloween the day of.
I guess like the whole month, huh?
Yeah, and if I'm going to go through all of that effort, I want it to be out there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I'm seeing your point.
And I don't really have, like, some people do, like, separate, like, fall season, so, like, harvest, pumpkins, apples, sunflowers. Like, I don't really have much of that stuff. I don't have a ton of decorations, period, although some people might argue with that. But, so most of our stuff is, like, glow-in-the-dark skeletons, so we're just going for it.
When did you get back? Recording, so let's tell the listeners you just got, didn't you all go to town this weekend for your 10th anniversary?
Yes, we went to St. Joseph's, Michigan, which is like this little Lake Michigan town. No, it's a small little lake town on Lake Michigan. And we went to an adorable little B&B that's actually for sale.
Ooh.
Yeah, do you want to buy it? Apparently it's a pretty seasonal venture,
Michigan?
you know, being in Michigan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's why they're for sale.
Not interested in anything north of Tennessee.
I know your temperature rules.
But that sounds nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
What does a cottage on Lake Michigan go for?
Say that again?
What is a cottage?
Yeah, no, it's listed. So it's not on the lake; it's across the street. But it's really nicely done. But I think they had dropped it all the way down to like $5.99 for this place.
Oh damn, that's expensive. I wasn't thinking that. But
well, I mean, it's like a 7-bedroom, 5,000 square foot place.
Oh, I think it's a cottage.
I said a B&B.
Oh, I think it's a cottage.
I don't think I used the word cottage.
Oh, I had that cottage in my head. How was it? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was nice. Morgan bought us dinner at this place on Friday that was like farm to table, and of course Morgan researched it, so it was actually like legit really good. And then Mom bought us massages on Friday, and that was great.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, my gift's coming.
You sang me a song.
Yeah, I sang you a song, so that's pretty good. That's time.
You sang me a song.
I mean, a meal, a massage, those things are fleeting. What is that? Some sort of temporary pleasure, an hour? Come on, a song lasts forever.
And ever. I do want the video, though, like I sent you.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so last time we interviewed you, you were also celebrating some sort of a life milestone.
My reunion.
Your 20th high school reunion, and now 10th anniversary. Something serendipitous going on here. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to do your life story like we've done with everybody else. Last time we didn't really do your life story. So, are you ready to begin?
I don't really have one, but okay.
Yeah, I guess
I have.
That's what everyone says. Everyone has a life story.
Okay.
Shit, Tony said that. She went for 6 hours last 2 weeks ago. Right?
I want to hear that so bad.
A lot.
I'm so backlogged on your podcast.
There's a lot of content out there. A lot of hours. Yeah, only the true diehards have got through all of them. Okay, February 11th, 1980. Monroe, Louisiana.
211 fell from heaven.
Said that last time. Maybe we did. Okay, anyway, go ahead. What am I
supposed to say? I was born. Same hospital you were born at. Sorry, I'm plugging something in as we talk. I came out with a cone head, and word on the street is my dad like fainted because of it because he thought I was handicapped.
What's your earliest memory from being a child in Monroe, Louisiana?
I remember being in some type of a playpen and seeing my Cocker Spaniel in the kitchen, and that was already when Mom had left my dad. We were living in like an apartment, I think.
How old were you?
Or maybe we were at Tony's.
How old are you when our mom left your father? Oh, so to make it clear, I'm not going to do like an intro for this one. We're 5 minutes in, so here's the little quick intro. Katie, if you didn't already know, Katie Clark-Keene is my older half-sister. Same mother, different father, but we grew up together. So there's no really – I have other half-siblings that feel like half-siblings.
Don't we all?
We're going to get into that. Yeah, they feel more cousins. I didn't grow up with them, but I grew up with you, so it's we're not full blood, but it's the same as my only full sibling, Morgan. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, essentially, when you came around, it was kind of just me and Mom, and so like you were just like, I mean, yes, Caroline and Bress and Hugh were around, but like you lived primarily as like me and Mom, so
right,
yeah.
Which is what?
So yeah, I was.
Where you left off.
So my understanding was. Yeah, I was going to say my understanding of kind of like how I was born is, I think Mom may have even talked about this, I can't remember, but was that like Mom and my dad were broken up at the time.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But then but like they got together like one last time kind of a thing, and then found out she was pregnant, and the decision to get married I think was primarily because of like thinking or knowing that that's what the grandparents really valued. My mom was technically, I mean, she was tiny, but she was technically pregnant when they got married, and they stayed married. Actually, they legally stayed married until I was like 5, but she left when I was about 6 weeks old. So that didn't work out so well, but I think she kind of always knew that.
So they really were married. Okay. Yes, they got divorced when you were 6 weeks old, or they separated, I guess.
Yeah, and then I was little, but I'm pretty sure we moved in with Toady shortly thereafter, and then eventually we got an apartment. Toady's my grandma, our grandma. And I remember for part of like my childhood, like Mom and I lived in a room together. So then Mom's younger brother, my Uncle Sean, lived there, but he was like late elementary, middle school. I guess he was, late elementary, middle school age. So he was there, and then Mom and I shared like a bunk bed in a room. And she was working, and I was little. But my dad was always around.
Okay.
Like I went there. I remember seeing him. Like I remember it was always like a Sunday. And I don't know if I spent the night there when I was really little, but I do remember like having a room, my own like quote unquote room. I didn't really have much of my stuff in it. And I always remember going to Arby's because they had the Mr. Men, Little Women Happy Meal type things, and he would always take me there. Like I remember like doing crafts at my dad's and
with
like
him?
Fun stuff like that, but it was but it was always like very much like a day trip kind of a thing.
You never spent the night there?
What?
You never spent the night there?
No, I know I did. I just don't know if I did when I was really little or not. I mean, I remember like being like 5 and 6, and I think I spent the night there. But that was also by that time he was already dating and or had already married my stepmom when I was like 5 or 6. So when I was really little, I'm not sure if I spent the night there. Probably. I don't know. He actually bought a house right across the street from where I ended up going to elementary school when we were in Monroe, Louisiana, which was, I went there from kindergarten through 2nd grade. And then that's when we moved to Atlanta. And I do know, so from kindergarten to 2nd grade memory of like my school in Louisiana, I remember they had like the big like 18-wheeler tires spray painted different colors and like half buried in the ground kind of a playground. I remember ladybugs. I remember the principal openly spanked people. I didn't get spanked, but I remember that was like a thing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I like it.
It was still like allowed. You like it.
Kind of.
Kind of. I remember not liking my kindergarten teacher, but then also finding out later that mom had told her like I had to do all this extra work. So like when kids had nap time, I was sent to the library on like extra assignments. Like I remember drawing like an entire human skeleton from like an encyclopedia in kindergarten. And I remember mom telling me like I wasn't allowed to color.
What?
So I had to do like extra math drills. I remember that all the way through. Yeah. I remember in second grade, everyone else was doing like timed drills of like addition where she would give them a worksheet and then it was like a minute or 3, whatever time limit. And then she'd collect the worksheets, right, to see how like their fluency. And I was on like multiplication at the same time because my mom was like, that's too easy or whatever. So she would like make sure like work with the teachers to differentiate my stuff. And they had a gifted program, but I think I was by far the youngest that was in there. And I don't know if that would have even happened if mom wasn't like an advocate for it. Cause I remember being in there, like being in first grade or second grade and like all the other kids were at least 2 grades older than me. But we always did really cool stuff. Like it was like an extension type class, like some gifted classes, it's just like harder stuff or, more accelerated. And this one was like, we got to learn about hieroglyphics and we got to grow butterflies and caterpillars and metamorphoses, whatever. So I remember that. I remember peeing in my pants in first grade in the
Whoa, what? Peeing in your pants is the coolest.
So cool.
What happened? Well, I want to hear. Well, no, I'll get back to mom. This had to be mom going to school in Atlanta, then having also gone to school in Louisiana in high school, and then obviously going to college in Louisiana as well. And then she was working in the school system at the time as well, so she must have known it was low quality education, and she was gonna. I'm surprised though, no nap. Do you remember if you were napping before kindergarten? Like before?
No, I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember, but I remember mom said I used to always love to sit and do like academic workbooks when I was 4. And according to her, like I learned to read, like not like War and Peace, but like pretty fluently, like know to read when I was like 4 or 5. So fairly early on. So like in kindergarten, they're learning letters and letter sounds a lot of times still. And so she was just like, no, this is a huge waste of her time. I do remember sometimes being at nap time because I remember one time in kindergarten getting in trouble during nap time. I think I've told you this story. It might have even been the last. I don't know why this would come up more than once, but I had a hole in my sweatpants and a crush on a boy named Henry, and he was laying next to me on my like nap mat, and I was trying to like be goofy and impress him, and so I was sticking my hand down my pants and my finger up through the hole and like being like, I'm a worm. And he was cracking up. And so then he was like, I want to do it. I want to be the worm. And so we got in a ton of trouble because he was putting his hand on my pants trying to stick his finger out the hole to be the worm. He's a lawyer somewhere now.
Dude, nap time could be fun. I remember my first day in my head, it was first day of kindergarten. This is one of my earliest memories. And laying down for nap time and thinking, like, how bizarre it was that I wonder if our mom had done away with naps by the time we made it to kindergarten. Because I remember, I don't remember taking naps, like, in our house when I was a kid or in preschool. I guess it must have. Maybe our preschool didn't let us. Anyway, I remember laying down for a nap in kindergarten and being like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
really? No, I don't.
We're going to sleep in the middle of this classroom on the floor together, like 30 of us. And that
seems like something you would have had at your preschool.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
They've eliminated it in most kindergartens anyway, so they were all with you on that.
True. Your daughter just got done with what? First? Kindergarten, and then second. Neither of them had naps. No,
and that's the thing is, like, kindergarten, like, they slowly, it's the push to accelerate education and stuff like that. It went from, like, being, like, an optional year to being, like, free half day, or you could pay extra for a full day or whatever. Now it's, it's mandated first year, whole year, full day.
There's got to be nowhere in the U.S. that doesn't have all-day kindergarten, right?
We got to keep up with China. I don't know.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it's essential shit. Okay, cool. Elementary school up till 2nd grade, and then what do you remember about my dad coming into the picture? That must have been around what? Well, tell that story.
Well, yeah.
Told before, but
so mom always talks about it, like remembering them from the Methodist church and being like the Sunday school teacher and Bubba hiding in the closet as the bad boy and all that stuff. I don't remember that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. Obviously it did. I just remember, the only part I remember was that Caroline was my friend, and I think it was kindergarten or 1st grade, and so who's also your half sister. But Caroline was
just real quick. Caroline being my dad's, can have different dads. My dad's daughter, and Katie and Caroline.
She and I were in the same class.
Yeah.
In either kindergarten or 1st grade, and I remember we were like good enough friends where she had come over to my house, and her dad came to pick her up one day, and he came in, and again, this could have been like him coming in and sitting and talking with my mom for like a long time, could have been orchestrated, right? By then they could also already have been like interested in each other, and this was like how they were like setting it up to like introduce the kids. I have no idea, but that's the first time I remember like being like, why is this guy still here? and then our neighbor, we lived in these really cute little apartments, and it had like this big like courtyard area in the middle. And I remember an ambulance pulled up, and one of our like elderly neighbors was either like rushed to the hospital. I think maybe she died. Like I think she was a lot older, but so I remember like it was like a weird evening. I think it feels like it was like a Sunday evening or something where it was like getting to dusk, and there's like paramedics out in the courtyard and like a gurney and like this dude in my house still because they were probably going to leave, and then this happened. I don't know. Like that's what I remember.
Right.
As like my first memory of him. And then I kind of like how Mom and Caroline have described it, like they just kind of started being around a lot more, and just I don't remember. I don't have a strong memory of like when it crossed that threshold into like, whoa, they're dating. But I do remember times where like I was spending the night, and Mom, of course, and all that, like spending the night at their house in Monroe, because I remember like Mom getting both Caroline and I ready for field day, because field day was like, you know, like the little sports competition day at the end of the school year, and like I remember her like tying like the black and gold ribbons in my hair, and subsequently Caroline, you know, that kind of stuff. So they just kind of like meshed together. But I don't know. I do know. I will say, like I remember with my dad, Mom telling me that like he finally came to her and was like asked for a divorce, and by then I was already like 5. But the reason he finally asked for a divorce was because he wanted to marry my stepmom, who he had been dating for years. Like thought he was being all secretive about it, but my mom actually knew. He had never met her because he had just, you know, that was his intentionally didn't want them to meet or whatever. But my mom knew that, or our mom knew that there was somebody. And I'm sure I had probably told her by then, because I think she was living there for like a year or so.
And then do you remember specifically, like, do you have any memory of Mom getting pregnant with me?
Yeah, but nothing strong. Like, I don't like have any strong, like, negative at all. Like, I feel like I was excited about it and happy about it. I feel like it was a weird thing to wrap my head around, and I think, like, I'm an impulsive person that's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea, let's do that. So I do feel like once, like the same thing with, like, the Caroline and Hugh and Preston thing, like, yeah, that sounds like fun, like, let's all hang out, and let's all have slumber parties, and then, like, once it was always a reality, then I think I was like, hey, whoa, what? Because I was so used to it just being Mom and I. So I think, like, yes, I think I was super excited. And, yeah, like Mom said, I actually dropped you as soon as we got home, like, after you were, like, 400 weeks of ICU, and we had to turn around and go right back. So I tried to balance you on my knee. I tried to bounce you on my knee and open the screen door, and you were in. It was probably like the equivalent of like the shitty car seats from the late 80s, but in my head it was like a bouncer kind of seat almost, but it was probably just a plastic car seat. And so I balanced the whole seat on my knee, and then when you slipped off, the whole seat fell. And I mean, obviously my 8-year-old knee is not that high off the ground, but like the whole seat went over you, and so you just conked the middle of your head, and it was instantly like this giant goose egg. And I remember being like,
goose egg being like my head imploded?
Goose egg like bubbled up immediately.
Came out.
But so like,
okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Goose egg is like you see a bump. So like you fell over, and I don't remember, like I feel like Mom rushed up and pulled the car seat back. Like I don't even know if I think I was paralyzed, and I think I just like let you lay face down on the concrete. And so then when she was like she was obviously understandably like very upset, and I ran, and I used to have this little spot upstairs in my closet that had like little posters and drawings back behind the clothes in my closet. It was like my little hiding place, and I went and hid in there because I was so upset. And she's like screaming from downstairs, like, get down here, we have to go back to the hospital. And I like wouldn't come out.
Right.
I mean, I did, but
that's
sorry
more
about
than I've ever heard it told.
Yeah.
So I was
well, I mean, like you're about to get in a really bad trouble, kind of a thing. And I don't like to look at like injuries, and so yeah. But I remember you just being like the cutest little like chubba wubba, like you were just like like one of those like mashed potato babies, and you were super smiley.
Not much has changed. I'm a cuddly, smiley
guy.
Not
much has changed. Like, you're not like a little Play-Doh little pile of mashed potatoes. So cute.
I feel that way on the inside, though. I feel like a big bowl of mashed potatoes.
Perfect.
All right. So then, what do you have any? I know I'm pulling like early elementary school memories here at this point, but like at that point, baby in the house is my dad. Do you remember my dad being out of the picture at that time? Was he like still hanging around after I was born? What do you remember?
When we brought you home from the hospital, I only remember being you, me, and Mom. Like,
right. Yeah, that's
yeah.
I think
and I'm
Mom
sure again, like,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I'm young, so like, I mean, my kids, even at the ages they are 8 and 6 and 3, like, they still ask me like clarifying questions about like, wait, so only girls can have babies? Like things like that are like confusing. So it takes a boy and a girl, like those kind of things. So like in my head, it was just kind of like you were Mom's baby. I don't remember like ever thinking of him as like your dad.
Oh wow, interesting. I mean, that's how I feel till this day.
Right. Oh, but that's also like how not there he was,
Yeah. I mean, that never changed.
Right.
Do you remember a point
I don't even know if I understood you coming home and I'm sure I did. Like, I'm sure that we had probably had, I don't know, maybe I'm assuming, but like, I'm sure I understood that you were technically his because we'd had like the conversation of like Caroline and I wanting to like split your birthday or you be born on mine or blah, blah, blah. So we knew that you belonged to all of us.
That's interesting. I never thought about that real quick. I'm exactly in between y'all's two birthdays. 3 days after Caroline's, 2 days before yours. Interesting.
Yeah, so she was always like, I'm the older sister. I was 8 when he was born.
Do you remember at that point, before then, around that time, like my dad and his kids like being around less and less? Or not? Do you remember like a separation transition period, anything along those lines?
I don't, and I don't know why I don't have a strong memory. I do remember Caroline and I having like a joint birthday at some point, but I feel like that still was probably pre-you. But I do also have like a feeling of a point where like she and I weren't as close as we had been like in kindergarten or something, and so it's starting to feel a little bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like I don't know why like that apart. Like, I have a strong memory of Mom telling me that we were going to move. I remember, like, Toady and Sean moving and knowing, like, that they took our great-grandmother Mimi with us because by that point she had pretty advanced Alzheimer's and, like, that kind of stuff. But I don't have any, like, strong, like, feelings either way towards any of it. I do remember, again, kind of, like, my personality, like, yeah, that sounds cool. Let's try that, of moving. And I remember my dad being super sad and crying and me being like, this isn't, like, thinking in my head, like, this isn't very fair. You're making me feel bad.
Well, you're second grade at the time?
Yeah, in the second grade. I also remember, this is funny, this is totally...
Do you remember being sad at all about having to leave your dad?
Yeah, but also, again, like, I'm such a, like, let's try it, new experience, like, impulsive. Like, I wasn't thinking that far ahead, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to miss you, too. Bye.
Love you, bye.
Yeah, like, it didn't click that, like, I wasn't going to see these people again. It was like, oh, wow, adventure.
Yeah.
I do remember, this is funny. It has nothing to do with our family, but I remember, it just kind of says something about my personality. Like, I've always been such a talker in school. Like, teachers hate me. And I remember in second grade, our teacher had some, like, behavior modification or reinforcement plan where she would give one person, like, a student of the week reward. So it was like if you were, like, the best behaved student all week, and I think there was, like, a point system or something. I never got that. I was never anywhere close. And I remember this one week, it was, like, the last week of school, or I think actually it was around Easter, because I think it was a chocolate bunny was the prize. But it was, like, close to when we were moving, and it was down to me, between me and some other little boy named Gray. And I remember her saying, like, oh, it was a close one, but Katie won. And I remember knowing as a second grader that I did not really win. I remember knowing that, like, she was just giving this to me because I was moving. And I also remember being like, okay. I remember thinking, like, this kid Gray just got robbed of, like, the best treat that we've had all year. But, you know, things happen.
So my mom has a dysfunctional relationship with the father of her second child. Suck it, Gray.
But, yeah.
And then, so what do you remember?
I don't want to take forward. I remember Toadie's apartment. I remember Mimi, our grandma. But I don't, like, weird. I don't know. I don't know why I don't have strong memories. Like, I remember our great-grandma, would paint her nails at this point. Like, like I said, she's pretty advanced Alzheimer's. She would paint her fingernails, and then I think she would just forget she had painted them, and she'd paint them again and again and again, and so there were just, like, streaks on the walls. Not, like, a ton, but, like, you know, I mean, Toadie's house is really well kept, so you notice, you know, bright pink or bright red fingernail polish on the wall or whatever. So that, I just remember, like, not understanding those kinds of things, again, like, as a kid, but knowing, like, something weird. I hated third grade, though. I hated coming to Atlanta because I just didn't have a warm reception, by and large, for kids. I walked in the first day of third grade, and I had a Louisiana waterfall mullet. And
what's a Louisiana waterfall?
I just made that up, but it's like I lovingly, my endearing term for my haircut at the time was the squid or the jellyfish, because it was like I had bangs that started at the very, like, crown of my head, like all the way in the back by, like, your calf, and went all the way forward and kind of curled under and all the way around to, like, where my ears are. So think like jellyfish, where it kind of has that, like, curl over kind of shape. And then the whole back was long, and I'm talking, like, way past my shoulders. And you're also talking about, like, a 7 or 8 year old kid who never, you know, like, your hair gets instantly tangly. So I look like a jellyfish. Like, that was the shape of my mullet. And I had a super thick North Louisiana accent.
Yeah.
And we moved to, like, a pretty pretty relatively metropolitan area, suburb of Atlanta. And so Trish Wise, who still remembers this, so she'll be all right with it. But when I came into third grade, was like, oh, great, we got another hick in our class. And I just remember being like, what? Is it obvious? Me?
I didn't even take naps.
I'm so much smarter than you. Yeah, so that was hard. So my third grade friend was a little girl who was like really Japanese, like first generation American Japanese, who was really good at drawing cartoons.
The two foreigners,
so she and I were
in the Japanese immigrant.
Yeah,
found each other.
That's right. I found the popular group eventually, and they took me in despite my idiosyncrasies, but not in third grade.
Wait, you went to?
And I remember.
Did you start at Esther Jackson, the same elementary school I went to?
Yeah, in third grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember any other than the social stuff and the initial I don't know, timidity or whatever, feeling of ostracization of being the new kid? Do you remember a difference in like the academic rigor of third grade versus your elementary school in Louisiana?
Yeah, great question. I do. I remember getting my first B at some point and being horrified. But it was because I was always so used to not having to try. And
right.
I didn't try. It wasn't like I wasn't capable of getting an A there. I was just like, wait, what? I have to do stuff? I don't know if I was necessarily in third grade when I got the B, but I do remember getting it. So yeah, I mean, again, not that Esther Jackson was a killer educational institution either, but yeah, there was definitely
what the fuck?
a stark difference. Sorry. Are you there?
Quality institution of lower learning. Yeah, I'm here. I mean,
you're mad.
Contemplating hanging up, but I'm still here.
It looks like a little college, yeah.
And then there was a gifted program at Esther Jackson, right? Didn't you start in third grade? TAG, what was called Talented and Gifted, TAG?
TAG, yeah. Yeah, it was GT in Louisiana for Gifted Talented. So I was in GT, and then I switched to TAG.
Oh, so they did have a specific program in Louisiana for it.
That's what I was saying. I was like by far the youngest. It was mostly started at like third or fourth, and I was like first or second.
Okay. And then so you moved to Atlanta. It was just me, you, and our mom. We moved in with Cody initially for a minute, and then we ended up, mom ended up buying a house of her own, so it was, the three of us in that house. And then
yeah, and I remember liking that. I remember liking it just being like you, me, and mom. I remember like finding some friends and stuff like in the neighborhood and that kind of thing. And I quickly assimilated and figured out the mullet wasn't cool, that kind of stuff. But yeah, by fourth grade, little did you, I mean, you were just an infant, but little did we know that our mom was still very much in contact with Hugh. And so I think she tells the story of when they went to New Orleans to get elope and get married, and Hugh wanted to have the voodoo queen of New Orleans marry them, blah blah blah, justice of the peace. They paid some Tulane girls that were at a car wash to come be their witnesses, that whole story. So what I remember from that was I got really sick. And I guess I had to have been third grade or summer after or something like that, because they moved, Caroline, Bress, and Hugh all came and did that next year of school in Atlanta. They moved in with us. So Caroline was there for fourth grade, and I was in fourth grade too. But I remember being really sick. I think I had a high fever, may have even been vomiting, but my mom had her really good friend Barbara, I think it was, babysit me. And I remember mom just being like a little bit frantic, but less caring. Our mom, if one of us is sick, how do I explain this? I just remember her behavior towards me being sick was very different from any other time I had experienced it. And I just remember being shocked that she was like, all right, okay, but you're good, right? Like, and like, here's some Tylenol. I gotta go. Because for her, it was like, I got to go get married. Like, I have this big thing going on, you know. But I was again like so used to her like
you have to suck it up.
Yeah, and I just was like, did she just really fucking leave? What just happened? Because I didn't know that she. Right. So I do remember, like, I remember having a really, really shocked, strong memory about like, are you kidding me? And then her coming back and like telling me that she got married, and I don't know, somehow like I reconciled it in my brain, but I also was just like, huh. Noted.
What did you say?
Noted. I'm gonna file that one away.
Do you remember her wearing a wedding ring?
Maybe. Apparently I'm not very observant. I don't remember.
I mean, come on. These are like relatively minor. She would have worn it for what, like 6 months?
Yeah, I don't remember. If she did, it was probably like a simple band, but I think I'm just projecting.
Right.
I don't know.
It was an elegant, simple band. It
was an elegant, you know, like a 10 carat. She's not crazy.
And then, okay, so next step, she gets pregnant again. Morgan, our younger sister.
Yeah. Well, okay. Question: did she get pregnant with Morgan after they had already moved in, or were they pregnant and got married because she got pregnant? I don't remember.
Oh man, I should know this. I
feel like from the podcast they got married first, but.
Well, I mean, so Morgan's born in July, so just run it back. That's conception in like October.
Sure. So that sounds like they got married first.
And do you remember the month when they got married?
No, but they started school. Yeah. No, but remember they started 4th grade with us, or 4th grade with me. So if she was conceived in October.
So they probably got married in like the summer or something?
No, I think it was like summer, because we're talking 2-lane car wash. So that sounds like summer. I'm like, I'm basically an investigator.
Nobody does car washes in the fall in New Orleans. Yeah, I think.
I don't know, but
if they started 4th grade with you and then they were married, I mean, they had decided to get the band back together, officially bring the kids over. You know, 4th grade year. They're all all of my half siblings on my dad's side are living with you, us in Atlanta, and then Morgan's conceived in October-ish, late fall, and then she's born in July, and then he's gone by that point. He wasn't even there. I mean, that school year was like tried out, didn't work, and by the time
that was a
Morgan
shitty school year.
Okay, go ahead. How so?
No, I remember Mom just being super stressed out, understandably. Like, I remember your crib was in, I think it was in her bedroom. Caroline and I shared the master bedroom upstairs, which had like a teeny little ensuite. She and Hugh had the basement. So, you know, like those, and I feel like maybe your crib was down there. I just remember, like, Caroline and I at that point were not, like, we had kind of grown apart by then. So, like, we were hanging out with different people. And it was hard all of a sudden for both of us to be, like, not only siblings, but, like, sharing a room. I remember getting into it with Preston, the younger brother, too. I remember one time where he and I actually got into, like a wrestling fight. Like, fighting on the ground, rolling around, like punching, kicking, all that kind of stuff, and then having to be pulled apart, and I'm crying and he wasn't, and I remember him being like, oh, she's crying, I won. And I remember Bubba, the older brother, being like, no, she definitely kicked your ass. She's just crying because she doesn't like fighting. So I just remember there's a lot of, like, weird stuff. Like, I remember Bub.
I picture Bubba, like, kind of standing, like, standing over the two of you as kind of like this referee / judge.
Yeah, I remember him being very calm and collected, and like very much like Preston,
in the corner, smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, like enjoying it way too much, and being like, let's all be clear, like Preston, she kicked your ass, but let's also be clear, Katie, you got to suck it up, you know. Like,
quit crying. What the fuck? It's not a good look after the fight. It does not look good in the eyes of the judges.
So yeah, I mean, it was just like, and then I can't go through, like, I can't talk about that year without talking about your dad. So like, my memory of that time is he was always at the house, and if he was either awake and in the back room in the basement, which he used as an office, or he was asleep, or he was gone, but like usually he was there. And I remember he would have like some weird mail order business. And like even as a fourth grader, like I understood that this was shady AF, and like it was not even like a legitimate thing. Like I remember I probably didn't have the vocabulary of a pyramid scheme, but I remember knowing this was a pyramid scheme. And I remember coming home from school and coming in through the garage and him meeting, I think it was Caroline and Preston and I, because we were the ones at the elementary. I remember meeting him at the door, or him meeting us at the door and being like, oh, looky what I got you, or something. I mean, I don't know exactly what he said, but I remember him being like, disingenuously sweet, and it's like feigning excitement. And I remember being like, whoa, what? And it was those little bottles that you screw, like you unscrew and put water into, and they have like a sponge on the top, and they're used for sealing envelopes when you have a shit ton of envelopes to seal. And what he did is he would make us come home from school and pack all these mail order like chain letters that he would send out. So he was acting like, I got you a present.
Oh my God.
Because you keep cutting your tongue on all these envelopes in my slave factory.
I can't have child blood on my mail order envelope.
Yeah, and I just remember hating him. Like,
what the fuck?
I remember hating him, like being so angry. And I don't know how outwardly angry I was, but I just remember being so angry that this man existed, let alone was in our house. But like, I just have always had like such a negative visceral reaction towards him. I didn't have that to the kids. The kids, it was more just like us as kids, like when we had like sibling issues or that kind of thing, or not sibling issues, but like having a hard time like accepting the fact that they were now sibling, whatever. But I remember loving them for the most part and most of the time. But yeah, him, like he just always felt like dishonest. He always felt slimy to me, like just not a good person. Like I always felt like he was using mom, like all that kind of stuff. I always felt like he didn't give a shit about his own kids.
This seems like and
not a lot has changed. Yeah, exactly. So I was right, and that's. I always say that to mom. Like, I'm like, I have many flaws, as you know, most people do, but I will say one of my strong suits I found is I'm a pretty good judge of character, like going off gut. And and especially when those like strong negative reactions, like I feel like I'm always unfortunately right in those situations. But that's by and large like one of the strongest ones I've ever had towards anybody in my entire life.
Damn.
But yeah, so they were only there 1 year.
Yeah.
And like you said, exactly. He left before Morgan was even born. But I remember like there were some fun times. Like I remember like us all going to the pool, and like there's, like I said, a ton of kids in the neighborhood, so we all played, and everybody found like their own. Like Bub found the druggy kids next door, and Preston tagged along. I remember Bubba. I don't know if they gave him the basement at one point, so that was his room, or if he was just down there when they weren't down there. But I remember one time walking in.
And he's like, let's clarify, he's like, what, 11, 12?
He was Bart Simpson incarnate. Like, he was wearing,
okay,
like...
go ahead. Yeah, I have another description, but go ahead. So he's like 11,
okay,
12.
Like,
Bart Simpson is...
He's like 6th grade. He's sixth grade. He always only wore black T-shirts. Usually they were like Guns N' Roses or Megadeth or something like a metal band. And he wore, skater type shorts that were way too big and, super baggy, maybe even a chain wallet, like that kind of kid. And he just always had a scowl. But I do remember walking in on him one time in the basement, and he was sitting, it feels like it was bunk beds down there at the time, but I could be wrong. And he was watching something on the TV, like on the bookshelf, and you have to come like down the stairs and look around to the right to see what's on the TV because the bookshelf's like built in right there. And it was, I'm going to get this wrong, Carmen Electra, like striptease workout video or Cindy Crawford workout video or something like that. It was like some just like workout video. And I remember being like, what are you doing? Like, that was my first encounter with anyone like watching like a 10-year-old's version of porn, essentially, right? Like that was all he could get his hands on. Adolescent boy stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's like a JCPenney like bra catalog, right? But I just remember being like, what are you doing? But that was so far removed from my reality. I was like, I'm so confused. Why would he watch this?
What's going on? Yeah, Max.
Why aren't you exercising? I mean, he probably had his hand. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, well, fucking judge your kid. So 12-year-old.
So anyway. But I remember just being like baffled. I just did not understand it. Like, oh, he's so weird. He's so quirky. What a goofball. And then the only other strong memory I have of like your dad before he pieced out was we went to this restaurant. And it's weird because I have a really strong memory of this restaurant. Like if I were to ever go back there, I'd be like, this is the place. But it was like somewhere not super close. Like it wasn't Roswell, but it was probably, it could have been like, I don't know, Marriott, like somewhere like 15 to 30 minutes away. And it was some type of Asian, because I just remember like the decor and stuff, and I remember the food. But so it was someplace he specifically wanted to take us. And I mean, I don't obviously know this for sure, but I know he was inebriated. And I think he started the trip that way, if I remember correctly. And he sure as hell ended the trip that way. But he was driving, and Mom didn't know that like he had been day drinking essentially. And he hit a curb, and my head like cracked the window. And it didn't like actually like shatter or anything, but like cracked. And I remember Mom, like I remember at this point like her arguing a lot more. Like open arguments at this point. Like it wasn't, they probably weren't hiding it nearly as well because it was just like so commonplace at that point. But I just remember like that was a huge thing. And I remember like the dinner was really super awkward. And anyway, I just remember that. And I remember knowing, I don't know if it was in retrospect or not, but I remember knowing like she had found like alcohol like up under the like floorboard of his trunk. So, like, where your spare tire was supposed to be was, like, a mini bar. Like,
Damn.
I remember, like, when he would sleep just like the dead because he was probably hungover, wasted, right? And I remember the boys used to think it was super funny that he would talk in his sleep. And so they'd be like, watch this. And so they'd go down there, and they'd say things like, hey, Daddy, can I go over to the duck pond? Which apparently the duck pond was like the equivalent of like a 7-Eleven or a gas station. And they'd be like, can I go over to the duck pond and buy me blah, 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 blah. And he'd be like, yes, son, just come on right back. And they'd be like, can I have a $20 wallet? And he'd be like, okay, just be good. And they just thought it was like the funniest thing ever. And they would get money from him or like permission to do these horrible things. Or things they weren't allowed to do while he was dead at sleep.
Hungover, sleep, pass like that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Real shame.
Just a very, very surreal juxtaposition to how we were raised before and after, and really even during, except during those moments where Mom wasn't home. And those were the moments where, I was like sealing envelopes and being privy to behaviors that I wasn't necessarily privy to nothing that like scarred me for life, but it was definitely outside of our utopia for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's hard to it's hard to believe because our mom is such like this like I think I always say like angelic monastic type like monk like figure. It's so crazy to think like, wait, I was in a car with someone who's my dad, which in and of itself is a crazy concept to like wrap my head around, to have a dad, and then he was drunk, like driving drunk, and my mom was there, like not participating obviously, but like involved in that situation. It doesn't even like compute for me.
Right.
Crazy. It's a real shame that guy wasn't there to guide me through childhood and adolescence.
Yeah, you really would have come out on the other end so much stronger.
So then, do you remember when he leaves, when mom's super pregnant? The story is, I don't know. Do you want to tell the quick version? Or I'll just tell it real quick. So I know exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, go for it.
They go back. Essentially, he tells them, hey, we're going to go back. School year's over. We're going to go back and visit your grandparents in Louisiana for the summer.
Right.
And his plan was never to come back. I think from mom's account, he was conspiring with his mom, my paternal grandmother, to like build a little house on the property I have in northern Louisiana, this old plantation, and then try to convince my mom to come move everybody there. I think that was how my mom described it.
Yeah, and
I
don't know if he even cared if mom came. I think he liked the fact that mom took care of the kids.
Yeah. I know.
But I think
my interview with him,
I think he could have
says just that.
Yeah. I used her for that. Yeah, I don't know if he would have even cared if she ended up coming back. I do think he probably thought that she would. But I don't think he cared either way. I think he was like, well, if she doesn't, like, Mimi will do it. the grandmother. So, yeah.
Do you remember
Thank God she didn't. Yeah, I think I do. I remember mom being really upset, but I also just remember being like really stressed out because again, like shit, how many months pregnant was she? But I also remember for me just being like a selfish fifth grader because like, for example, when Morgan was born, I was in Hilton Head Island with Momo floating in a pool. And I remember her mom coming outside and being like, you have a sister. And me being like, what? And she's like, you have a sister. Your mom had a baby girl. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Sipping pina coladas poolside with Momo.
Momo, best.
So do you remember? So once you were introduced to this new sister, what's your feeling? What do you remember life from there? That's like, it's so funny. Like everything up until this point, I know is part of my life, right? But really, when I think of my childhood, it's me, you, Morgan, and mom. And like this starts now. At this point in your life story, for me, it's like really the beginning of my life. I don't have any I don't think I have any recollection of them being in the house. I mean, shit, what was I, 2, if that?
No, you would not remember that. No.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. I have these. What I guess they're not memories. They're.
I do remember mom working really. Yeah, sorry.
I think I have visions in my head of what living with them would have looked like, and I have seen some like home videos of when they did live with us in Atlanta, and so I think I've I've fabricated these what feel like memories of them being of me living with my dad and my siblings on that side in Atlanta, but I don't think they're real.
Yeah. I wanted to back up and I wanted to say one thing about like that crazy, what I call 4th grade time when all of them were living in Atlanta. And I do remember even in that insanity where we went from like you, me, and mom, and even then, like you have to, like people have to understand, like mom was not only a single parent, she had an infant or toddler, whatever, however old you were. Like she was a school psychologist and she worked like 30 miles away. So like she had me to get off to like 3rd and 4th grade or whatever, and she had you to like pack up and had to take you to a daycare all the way up there and then work all day and then come home and pick you up at the daycare and then come home and like do my homework and all that stuff. Like that in and of itself is hard enough. And then she had 3 brand new kids and essentially a 4th. I mean, he was absolutely no help. He was draining financially, emotionally, everything. I mean, he was worse than a child, honestly. And so, but like even during that time, like Mom was still doing things like staying up until 2 a.m. the night before our birthday to make our birthday posters, buying Caroline and I both real live rabbits for Easter, because that's a good idea. Like crazy, like that to kind of like keep it up. And that's just, yeah. And again, like crazy, at that time, being 7 months pregnant. I don't
even know how. I don't know how that's possible. How's that possible?
I mean, it's real easy. You just go to the pet store and you buy 2 rabbits. But then, like, thank God they chewed their way out of the box and got eaten by a German or a Saint Bernard, because we sure as hell were cleaning up the poop.
I'm not talking about the rabbits. I'm talking about Mom's like paternal and professional output.
I know. I just thought it'd be funny.
That was good. I liked it.
Thanks.
Do you remember like a sense of harmony might be strong, but a sense of tranquility kind of starting to establish itself in the house, at least relative tranquility, when it was just us?
Yeah.
Even though Mom had, it's so funny, right? The tranquility comes with the single mom of 3.
Like, get out of my house, yeah.
And one of them's a newborn, like, and that's when the tranquility comes.
Yeah. And I do remember, like, it also, too, like, I always think back on this kind of stuff, and, like, I do the math, right? Like, I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I'm very happily married, and I have all that help, but there's times where, like, I feel like I'm alone in a lot of it, and, like, I'm just like, what? Like, my in-laws just took my kids for 2 days. Like, my mom drives up or flies up pre-COVID, like, 5 times a year. Like, Mom was, and then I also, like mentioning my age, like, at this point, Mom's, what, 32 or 33, having Morgan?
Yeah.
You know, like, she did all this shit in her 20s.
Yeah,
her
dude.
20s, Alex. Like,
yeah. Because what was she? How was
but yes, I do remember it being calmer. I do remember it feeling like things got back to normal. Like, whoa, that was a glitch.
Did that just happen?
Yeah, and I remember being like, okay, so it's never going to be back to like just me and Mom and like the attention that you get as an only child. But like, I remember loving you guys, but it was still hard on me because it was never, again, like what you were originally used to, kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely seems like a happier time.
Yeah. What a roller coaster for you as like a child, seeing all of that, being like the only child with just you and your mom and your dad kind of too. Then explosion of all.
Yeah, I was the only grandchild. Yeah, I was the only grandchild on both sides forever. You know, and then like. And then you were not. I mean, you were an adjustment, but I didn't have time to get adjusted to you because like the rest of it came.
Yeah, it all came. I came with a whole army.
You had baggage, bro.
Yes, I did.
Sure.
All right, so then take us through. I like to think of this. I kind of, I don't know if I've asked this to all the interviewees, but I find this shit fascinating. It's like, what you're now, what are you, 5th grade now? Yeah. So you're starting to like, you know, develop an awareness outside yourself. What do you remember wanting to be when you grew up? Do you have any memory of that in 5th grade, going into middle school? I was going to be a dancer. Okay.
So I always did dancing. Like, I started dancing back when I was like 4 in Louisiana. And Mom kept me, even if she couldn't afford like crazy stuff, like, or just schedule-wise, like she put me in the Roswell Rec Center dancing. And that's like, I would equate that to like my Monroe education to my Atlanta or my Esther Jackson, you know, Roswell education, where like the Roswell Rec was so watered down that like they were like, oh, she's so strong in tap or whatever, like she gets to do a solo, blah blah blah. And so then we actually reached out to like a much more expensive, like more recognized dance company, and so then it was like small fish, big pond, right? You know, like reversal. But I danced.
It's the same as sports,
yeah, I danced
right?
all the way through eighth. Exactly.
Rec basketball.
Yeah, I danced all the way through eighth grade. So.
Okay. Yeah, dude.
So that was my thing.
I remember going to a lot of dance stuff, and it's
Mm-hmm.
funny, right? Because I don't have. Morgan had to attend both, so I never knew what it was like to be an attendee of sporting events, but I definitely remember being an attendee of dance stuff. I remember liking it, though. I remember feeling like I feel like Morgan looks back and I mean, if you're a kid getting dragged around to all that shit and you weren't participating from Morgan's standpoint, it'd be seem like a pain in the ass. But I remember going to your stuff and feeling like excited and proud. Like, oh, this is cool. That's my sister in there dancing. This is like, you know.
That's so cute.
One of all these kids running, all these dancer kids running around. My sister's one of these dancer kids. I never had any interest in dance. That's interesting, though. You think maybe I would, like you do what your big sister does, but I guess it's just like, I don't know, boy genetics. It's just, it didn't.
So strong.
You think
you saw like that one boy that was out there, and you're like, yeah, no.
I think about it now, though. Like I go out and play basketball during COVID. I've gone back. One of like my few escapes is going to these basketball courts, although they're all getting shut down in LA. It's like we just go deeper and deeper into quarantine here in LA. I love going out on the weekends and playing basketball, and obviously there's not any like games going on. It's not pickup as it would be in the before times. In normal times, you go to a public basketball court, you know, just a bunch of bros playing pickup. And now it's like, actually usually I'm out there just by myself, but every now and then it's just, you know, dudes on their each individual court just shooting around. And I love that. And it feels like dance. Like I'll go for hours. And at some point I'm like, what am I doing out here? What do I enjoy about this? And it's just the movement of the body. But it feels like dance. It feels like this orchestrated dance. And I keep thinking every time I go out there, I'm like, man, when the world starts to open back up, I'm like, I think I might start getting into like take some dance classes or something. I mean, hip hop dance classes, like a formal dance education. So it definitely.
You've always enjoyed dancing, like just socially.
Yeah, I love dancing.
Yeah,
I love dancing. I've never felt confident in it in any way. I've never felt like confident in my dance skills like I do in my like sports skills or athletic skills.
Right.
But I've always, I'm not gonna lie, I have always felt when I dance like, ooh, I feel like there is something here. Like I know I'm not like good. I know I don't look like a trained dancer, or I know I'm not dancing like a trained dancer, but I do feel like I have something here to build upon. And like I do feel like I'm moving my body better than like the majority of those around me. So I don't know.
Well, and then your background with strength and like body, like strength training and body resistance stuff and the yoga. Like I've known people that were in professional dance companies that had 0% formal training, that just were like completely self-taught. Most of them were black, so they had like really good rhythm, but like they would just self-teach, and like they could do like b-boy type stuff really easily because they had like they were really jacked and those types of things. And then the other stuff they just kind of were like trying to pick up along the way, and they were taking classes and things like that. So.
Yeah, I think I could do that. It's just, well, now in my 30s, it's not self-consciousness anymore. I guess a little bit still there, but definitely if you're a kid growing up, you know, being in kind of a masculine peer group or feeling I had to play that role, and that just being naturally who I am, I never, even as a kid, I probably did enjoy dance. I definitely never had that deep of the confidence to be like, yeah, I'm gonna really go for it, and like work on my dance moves like by myself in my room or whatever. Which of course, you know, I all through my childhood I was working on sports skills by myself, shooting basketball or whatever. So yeah, I think maybe now if I really tried, I could, you know, here at my little guest house in LA, go on some YouTube. Oh my
God, please join a hip hop troupe. Julianne did. She's in a hip hop troupe right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, I may. We'll see. There's a lot of things I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to do physically, skills I want to learn into my 30s. Anyway, so dance. Yeah, dance your thing. You want to be a dancer. What do you remember your relationship with school? How do you remember your relationship with school progressing? Obviously, you're a very successful, smart kid. School came very easily to you. I remember the same thing in elementary school. School came very easy to me as well. How do you remember your relationship with school and academics developing?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, I always think back, like, man, if I would actually tried and if I actually had the forethought to be like, this does matter and, like, I want to be learning and whatever, like, it came really easily. I did what I needed to do, and I got A's and B's for the most part, but, like, you know, I wasn't winning any, like, Student of the Year awards or anything, like I said. I was in the gifted classes up until middle school. And then in middle school, that's when I started to, like, fray around the edges a little bit. So, like, I remember because everything was so easy, it's kind of like you saying the dance thing. Like, I think sports came so easily to you. If someone had been, like, recognizing, like, these, like, God-gifted dance potential in you, like, maybe that would have been, like, the way that you went, but, like, it was like that with sports. For me, it was like everything just came so easily. So then when things weren't super easy, instead of, like, leaning into it and rising to the challenge, unfortunately, my personality was always, like, the opposite. So, like, I remember being in the gifted 8th grade algebra class and it being hard. And so then me being like, I don't want to be in it anymore. And I remember Mom being like, no, like, you can do that. And knowing my potential, and me being like, nope, not doing it. And then that was, like, also, like, leaning into that even further because you're telling me I can't and I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I'm asserting an independence. And same thing in high school. Like, I remember
this is
being
where
like,
a dad is needed. This is where a dad is needed. These are like the cracks. As amazing as our mom is and was as a single parent, these are the cracks. These are the cracks in the skill set. These are the chinks in the armor.
I don't know. I remember her being pretty hard on it, but I also remember really fighting back on certain things. Like, I was going to say in high school, I remember.
I'm not blaming her at all either. I mean, just fucking imagine, dude. She's like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to get her perspective on it. But think about it. Like, she's dealing with, she's a single mom, 3 kids. Now her eldest kid is, like, reaching adolescence and is probably being rebellious. And now she sees the talent in them, but in you. And but she probably, she also sees the rebellion. And then she has to worry about the 2 other kids. She has a full-time job. Money's tight. And she's probably, like, feeling a sense of helplessness as a parent for the first time. Like, damn.
Well, and I also probably. Right, and I also probably completely, like, took advantage of the fact that, like, we're all at high school registration, and she's telling me I have to sign up for a second year of Spanish, and I can't jump over to German just because my best friend Robin's taking German. You know, she wants me to actually get deeper into a language and stick with it. And, like I said, I probably completely exploited the fact that, like, she had 2 small children with her, and I can scream louder. And I'm fine with throwing a tantrum, like I don't know. I don't know if a dad would have mattered in that situation. I mean, but yeah, for me, like, it was just a slow decline of, like, whatever.
Could you see? So let's take your eldest daughter, who's most like you, project forward.
Oh, she hates trying. She has, like, this immediate, even worse than me in some things, like, she has this immediate, like, panic reaction when something is hard. Even if it just, like, visibly, like, the actual, like, textual display is hard. By that I mean, like, if the directions are more than one sentence, like, she's right. I can't do this. And then, like, so then I'll work through it with her, and, she catches on super fast. She's in an accelerated program, blah, blah, and, like, she's fine. And, like, I just keep hoping, like, every time when she gets through that and she gets to the other side of it and she lives in that moment and, like, has that, experience and that feeling that, like, that'll become less and less. And I obviously am still holding out hope. I have not resigned to that being the case because she is only 8, but I haven't seen, like, a big improvement in that. Like, she hates competition. So even if it's just, like, an online quiz thing where it's timed and, like, you see, like, a Kahoot where you see, like, your scores come up. Oh my God, like, she can't do it.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you say? I certainly know. I've always loved that. I'm the opposite. I've always loved the competition. I'm not to say, like, certainly not
throughout my academic career as a child and even into adulthood with OCD, I certainly was not the most resilient student or human in any way. But I do love the competition. Like something like a Kahoot, I would have loved that shit. But I know the feeling of being overwhelmed, like you said, seeing the directions that are more than one line. But what do you see in your?
Well, she would love that Kahoot if she was getting the top score every time. But she's in an accelerated class, and she's seeing, like, out of 20 kids, like, she's number 18 on this Kahoot, and she's like, oh, I hate that, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. How do you respond to that and try to improve that, and how does your husband, her father, respond to that? Is there any difference? Y'all on the same page?
I handle it a lot more, just based on who's working on stuff with her. So whether it's right or wrong, I handle it nine times out of 10 or even more than that. I just make her do it. Like sometimes I will allow her like a brief escape. But then she always has to come back and complete it. If it's something like a Kahoot or something like that, like I will sit next to her. I might even like type the answers for her to help give her a little bit of an edge that way, but I'm making her do all the answers. Same thing with like an extra math fluency, that type of a thing. So I baby it a little bit, but just enough to where like she doesn't like become like so emotionally flooded she completely shuts down.
Right.
And so she's still having to like experience it and get something out of it, and then I just keep trying to like slowly fade that. I don't know.
Does your eldest daughter, the one you've been referring to, or any of your well, Elliot doesn't count because he's 3, but do either of them, and even I guess really Amelia is the best test case here because even Coco's kindergarten, you could have a breakdown. I'm wondering, do they ever just like totally crack and shut down? Like just
but not often.
Implode under the circumstance. Like I have a total meltdown because I can't do this math or whatever.
Yeah, Amelia has been
from, like throwing shit around, but like crying or just like an extended state of inability or refusal to do it. Okay. Yeah,
Amelia has had probably 3 of those since e-learning started, so 20 days of school. But
3 times in 20 days.
2 or 3 times, yeah.
Since
to tears. Yeah.
So that's like crying.
It's all been test or quiz or timed competition based stuff.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Too much pressure.
Yeah.
Good for him in the long run though. I mean, I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean she's gotten a little bit more desensitized to some of the ones that like they have to do every day.
Right.
She's gotten a little bit better in that. But
I'll be very interested to see how Amelia handles shit. I kind of hope college is like, I mean, she's only 10 years away. It's crazy to think from college, but I guess college will be just as ubiquitous then. Although I do get this distinct feeling, and I hope this is true, that college is kind of on the way out, at least in its traditional sense, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, shipping off to a separate location for 4 years of your life. There's definite value in that, but I don't know. It just seems I'm hoping some alternative paths will really start to solidify and become commonplace. But just assuming it's kind of standard.
It's funny because I totally agree with you, but at the same time, in my life specifically, I can't imagine not having my college experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. That's funny. It's interesting you say that. I'm glad I did in the sense that, like, I don't regret it by any means, and I think it was certainly valuable in its own right and well beyond the academic. But I don't know. I would if I had the opportunity to take a time machine 10 years back and redo my college experience or not do a college experience at all, I would definitely do it. I would, yeah.
You would go back?
I would go back and not go to college if I could choose. I would definitely at least take a year off and just kind of take a step back from all of like formal academia and just kind of, I don't know. I had no idea what the fuck and it's different, right? I was like really deep into the throes of OCD and mental illness in that part of my life. And so I wasn't thinking like that broadly or clearly or introspectively in that about like my academic or professional future.
Right. Oh yeah, I mean,
like,
I was an awful student. I would definitely do a lot of it differently, but I just can't imagine not having that formative part of my upbringing, I guess so.
Yeah. But I'll be interested to see how your oldest daughter handles that, and all of your kids handle that.
Yeah.
Like that whole SAT, applying to college. I just don't imagine millions are going to enjoy that whole process.
No, I don't either. No, I mean, like they did standardized tests. That was one of our instances, and her best friend is here in the house with her, and I had said to both of them, like, it's not a big deal. Like, if you don't know the answer, that's just telling your teachers that's something you need to work on. Like, that you're not supposed to know all the answers, and which is totally true. Like, I'm not like blowing smoke. Like, that is absolutely what that is for. And her friend's like, yeah. Click, 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 click. I have no clue what this means. I'm like, not sweating it. Glad to be done. And
yeah. So just to catch people up real quick. This so you did e-learning, obviously, like the whole fucking country did, to finish out last school year, and then their school district is back, but with the option to do it at home. And so you're doing this first semester or just indefinitely at home for now, right?
So I'm keeping Amelia and her best friend and her best friend's little sister who's in kindergarten, and then Coco who's in first grade. And they're all doing virtual e-learning through their school district. The school district just announced on Friday that they're going to start introducing some in-person learning, but they're doing it very limited, so they can't really right now figure out the like a safety protocol for eating at school. So they're going to be alternating.
There's no kids
There's nothing.
School, at their schools?
They're allowing some special ed self-contained kids to come in like once or twice a week, and some tier 3 intervention kids, but that's it.
Oh, I thought y'all were back at school and like
they gave two options and then they retracted it. Yeah, they actually had an all or nothing, and then they retracted it, and it was all virtual. So starting late October 19th is when they're going to start like some hybrid option, but it's only going to be 2.5 hours a day for 2 days a week. So it'll be 5 hours of in-person instruction, and then it's going to like alternate. Like some kids will go Monday, Thursday, some kids will go Tuesday, Friday. And the family of the little girls I'm keeping, and myself, and Ty agrees too, we just decided it's not worth it at this point. Like if there's going to be, like there was already 3 positive teacher cases at Martin Elementary, even while we were all virtual. So we're just like, you know what, this is going fine. Like it's not worth it. Yeah, well, I don't know if they're testing them. I don't think they're actively testing them, but they had 3 positive cases, like of teachers that are out, and then they had 14 staff members that had to quarantine.
So are the teachers? We're totally aside here, but it's good.
Yeah.
I want to talk about. Are the teachers teaching from school?
Most of them, unless they got some type of exception or hardship.
Okay. And then, so then they're probably doing tests. Are they doing like daily testing of the teachers when they go into school every day? Do you know that?
I don't think so. I don't know. If they are,
so the teachers,
they might be doing two.
The teachers that tested positive just like got sick. They got tested on their own. Okay. So there's probably
that's what that's my understanding. I guess I don't know the whole story, but my understanding is I don't even know if it's teachers or staff or what, but like these are people that were going out and doing whatever else they're doing in their life and somehow got sick, and so.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, well, let's connect the dots back to you. I'm
gonna eat dinner while we talk.
Okay. You got you're talking about how like you're losing your investment in school. So as you get into high school, you stop dancing. What did you start thinking you wanted to do as you start thinking about college, graduating high school? How did your thinking start to change, or did it?
I think I still always wanted to do, like, I always loved performing. I loved dancing. I had quit that, and I did a lot of working in high school. So I worked I always had a job, like even if it was like Subway for a hot second. Like I did a lot of daycares and things like that. So I did like the work study programs and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, at like I think it was just my senior year, maybe junior and senior, I started doing some theater, and it was just super fun. And so I remember being like, oh, that sounds fun. Like I want to do something fun. And so I applied to just a lot of like pretty like southern schools, ones that I knew that my SAT score, even though it wasn't great, but it was fine, like I would get into and maybe even get some like partial scholarship type stuff. And I had I think it was already my ex-boyfriend. My ex-boyfriend had always loved Ole Miss, so I had applied there, and I applied to try out for like their theater scholarships. That's where I decided to go. But I mean, again, like high school, I was already just like, I was part of like what I would consider like the popular group and that type of a thing, and just much less. I mean, there were still people in our group that did care about academics, and president of the student council, and Courtney graduated early, and those types of people. But I just wasn't one of those.
For the most part, your peer group was enjoying high school socially.
Yeah. I guess we have to talk about my senior year, right? When I skipped like 900 days. Oh,
I didn't know that. I knew.
Yes, you did.
Kid, no, I didn't. I don't know. I remember my conception of like your high school experience was that you were a popular kid. There were always friends around. There were parties. I remember at least one like below, and at least in my head as a kid, like wild fucking party at our house. When I think Mom was there. I think Mom was there.
Are you thinking about my 8th grade party, my surprise party, or later?
I remember a party where, like, once again, in my, like, 8-year-old head or however old I was, it was, like...
I think that was my surprise party that she threw.
And, like, it was just, like, from what I understood what happened, as we're, like, rehash the events after it had happened, like, obviously your friends were invited, but, like, your friends invited friends who invited friends who invited friends, and I just remember, like, car after car, person after person showing up, and like literally our house overflowing with people into the front yard, into the backyard. In my head, it was like this like fucking fraternity house party, animal house party, like overflowing.
It was like old school
in the backyard, and like there being kids drinking beer in the treehouse, and me being like, "What the fuck?" and not being like, "Oh, this is bad." And because I knew, especially with our mom, like alcohol is bad, cigarettes are bad. I remember seeing those things and not thinking like, oh, because at that point I'd probably started seeing those things around the neighborhood, but thinking like, like knowing this was bad, they're not supposed to be beer here or cigarettes,
like
but like, oh, dude, this is awesome. Like, who are these kids? This is happening right now in my house.
I gotta tell my friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know,
and my friends
but
were there.
I feel like
all my friends were with me there, and I remember, my little elementary school friends all of us being like, "Dude, this is the coolest."
I feel like that
but
might
also
have
thinking,
been.
like, my mom is like, this was not supposed to happen.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I don't remember, man. That's the thing too. The party was so crazy. It seems to me like it had to be a high school party. But also, I remember the alcohol being there and that being like a huge deal. Like, alcohol at a middle school party is a big deal. Alcohol at a high school party is not a huge deal. I remember the alcohol being like hidden, not a ton of it, and so I feel like it was middle school, because I also remember even when you were
but they might have also just been hiding it from Mom.
Yeah, totally. They were definitely hiding it. Anyway, I don't remember how old you were. But
I don't know.
The point
she had a big 8th grade surprise party for me, but we could have had another party later in high school too. I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, the point being, like, you were a social kid. Academics was not your priority. Do you remember, was college always just like a given, mandatory? Okay. Yeah, that's how I remember it too. I never have any thought of ever like not going to college. Or it just
but that's also how it was. That's how it was articulated. Like even in high school to us, it was like, they put all the college flags everywhere in your counselor's office and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Even from like the standard of the schools, our high schools and elementary and middle school standard, if you didn't get into college, like something went wrong. Is how I would remember it.
Well, and that's like I've worked in, a few different like charter schools and inner city schools in Chicago, and that's like the mantra is like, I'm going to college, especially for like the young Black kids. Like they're always like inundate them with that like mindset,
Yeah, I talk about that
like
a lot with
the end goal.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know. Like I only have my school experience, and then obviously we both got into the actual education game as teachers. But that seems to me, and I talk to my teacher friends about this a lot actually. That theme that like especially in these inner city schools or in all schools really, that college is pushed on you as like the path. Like that is what you do when you graduate high school. And me thinking like, man, that is not. When I became a teacher, realizing this is when I first started realizing like, after graduating college, then teaching kids, especially in the inner city, and realizing like, dude, college, especially if you're having to pay exorbitant amounts of money for it and go into debt for it, is like, it's not that great. It's like, I don't know. I now certainly in my 30s am now kind of staunchly against this model that college is the singular option post high school.
Or especially like immediately following, right? Like without any like soul searching type stuff. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. How do you look back on your college experience? Like, talk to us about that. So you ended up doing theater. I remember going to once again, I remember attending those, and I was like a adolescent myself, and like, I don't know, you're my big sister, right? So I'm always going to be like proud and this sense of admiration. But like, I remember loving that shit. I remember going to your theater tryout for the scholarship at Ole Miss and be like, this is the fucking coolest. My sister's the best one here. I remember going to all of your plays and cabaret in particular and being like, this is the coolest. And my sister's an actress in like a college play.
And she's wearing a bustier. Look at all these boobies.
I remember loving it. I remember loving the fact that you were doing theater. It was so cool to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I was barely doing theater, let's be fair, because I cannot sing and I'm not a good actress. So the only reason I was ever on stage is because I had far and away some of the best dance experience up there, because most of the other people were just like straight play kids or singers, right?
Right.
And I mean, I fairly early on lost my theater scholarship because of my abysmal grades, but part of that was me, again, continuing with like this poor prioritization of academics, but also part of it was I actually had a friend, a very, very, very good friend who died my freshman year. So like we all went through like a really deep like mourning period. Like, and I say that it was like me and my, what I would call like my theater fraternity, because we were just such a tight-knit group. And so like I just went through like a really big depression, like just stopped going to school for a few weeks kind of a thing. And so there was one semester where I wasn't like opening up to mom or my dad or anybody really about it. I mean, I think they knew that it happened, but I was just leaning on like these, like I said, like your theater family at that point, because you're just so enraptured with like this reality and this identity now. And like we would just like drive around and listen to really sad songs and drink lots of beer and eat lots of pizza and get really fat and sad. And I think I got like a 0.7 that semester or something. Like,
whoa, what?
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't trade that time for the world.
How do you recover from a 0.7? That was your freshman year, huh?
Uh-huh. Well, so it was her birthday, and she was coming back from visiting her parents in St. Louis, where she's from, and it started raining, and it was like that fresh oil on the road, and she had an SUV, and she hydroplaned and crossed the median and killed a family, and she died instantly. And she was like this
family and her.
Yeah. And she was like this little angel, like amazing dancer. She was a Phi Mu with me. Like the only reason I actually did sorority stuff other than mom saying I couldn't. So I was like, oh, what'd you say? Yes, I can. And she was
you did
my,
sorority.
Yeah. And she was my best friend, Brian's girlfriend. Like we were all very, very close. So it was crazy.
That's fucking crazy. I've never had a close friend die. I've had friends or friends of friends or, you know, people I went to school with, but never like, right? I've never had a friend die. That's wild. Freshman year too, man. Fuck. That's a lot.
Yeah. And so that's, I mean, like, actually, no, I'm sorry. It was the first semester of my sophomore year. That's what it was. Because it was October. It was October 15th. So it was the year that the first semester of my sophomore year. And like how we handled it, it was like I said, I mean, I already said that, but like we also like had her morbid birthday party. Like that was what actually I was coming back home from like a weekend away to get home for her birthday party. Like that was what was always planned. And we got news like 2 hours before that she had died. So like we all just had like this like all night kegger, but like we're all just like crying and that just like extended for a couple of months. Like,
whoa.
Yeah.
Damn, I never heard that. That's crazy.
And I remember running into like the TA or like the associate professor or whatever who I had during that during that semester, who was my English teacher. And somehow that came up, and him being like, oh my God, if you had told me like what had happened, like I would have let you at least like withdraw. And I was like,
right.
Do you really think I cared about my fucking grade point average at that point? Like, I was finding out life right then. You know, like,
yeah, talk about, I mean, shit, I guess that type of shit happens. You don't have to go to college to experience fucking horrible tragedy and grow from it. But like, yeah, that is the ultimate benefit of college experience. Sorry to like use, you know, your friend's death as like the emphasis point, but like, I mean, that is having just taken, you know, this kid I used to teach, Karashi, up to college. That to me is the biggest. I don't give a fuck about his academics. Like I talk to his academic advisor like on a weekly basis, and he's going to struggle through his classes. And honestly, as like his like, you know, only parents or whatever, and looking at his college experience, I don't give a fuck about his academics. I really don't. Like I know he doesn't know what he wants to major, and I know he's not even really thought about it. I know it could change next week. I just want him to, you know, I want him to just make whatever the minimum he needs to make in order to keep his scholarship and, you know, continue to be able to have the opportunity to go to college. You know, I don't care about his academics at all. I just want him. I know it's going to be super hard, and he's starting to like enjoy it more and more week by week. But it's like I just want the only investment I have in his academics is the ability to just have this freedom, adult, independent experience. And obviously I don't want any of his friends to die, but I want him to experience like the hardships of being on your own and, you know, having to deal with life, you know, by yourself. Is he
finding a tribe there? I know we're coming off subject, but like, who cares? Is he finding a tribe out there?
That's the beauty of his situation and I really always try to, you know, the kids had obviously a super difficult upbringing. But I really try to, and he's kind of stuck in that mode in his head. He knows that, right? He's aware of that. He's been told that his whole life, and it's true. It's accurate. And it's, you know, even more palpable when you go to a private liberal arts school in Billings, Montana. It becomes even more palpable as, you know, your peers are, you know, for the most part, the other students are, you know, wealthy kids from Montana and the Wyomings and the Dakotas, you know. And apparently there's a lot of like international students, you know, and those kids, all, you know, especially if you're going to private school in the United States, those kids have a lot of money. And so it's becoming even more palpable. But I really try to emphasize to him almost every time we talk, like, dude, that's your past. This is your present and your future. Like, yeah, you've been through a lot of shit to get to this point, but you're at this point now, and this is your new reality. So, like, no more excuses. You are now you've come from a super disadvantageous, underprivileged position, but now in your new life and this new book that you're writing, you're in a privileged position. You are an American college student at a 4-year private liberal arts school, and you're playing a sport. Like, you're a high-level athlete. Like, you're in an elite position from a global standpoint. You're in like the top 0.1%. And so, like, you know, it's time to adopt that new identity, not the identity of your past. Like, certainly use your past as fuel to like guide you into your present and your future, but you're not that person anymore. Like, get rid of that victim mentality. Like, you're in a privileged position, take advantage of it.
So
do you think
anyway,
he feels transparent? Like people see that, or? Like
well, I mean, it's not like I can just say that and then he just does it, right? He's still in this. It's going to be a long transition. But each week I talk to him, or day by day. I try to talk to him multiple times a week. This past week we were just playing phone talk. But I think that the less I hear from him regularly, like the first couple of weeks, multiple times a day, I don't want to be here, or this is going wrong, or can you help me with this? And then now it's like a couple times a week. And then last week we just played phone tag. I didn't talk to him. I don't think I talked to him at all last week. I think we never even connected last week. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I got on that tangent because that's the value of college. You were saying, you experienced this incredible tragedy as a fucking 19-year-old. That's growth, man. That's so much more valuable in the long run and as who you are as a human being than, your A in biology or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, by and large, again, do I feel like there are collegiate experiences and programs and opportunities that you can have that are really beneficial and do have a lot of academic and intellectual growth? 1,000%. But do I also feel like there's a big discrepancy between like what you put, you get what you put into it, and I think that you can still get by and at least pass things. And there's a vast difference between people that really truly excel and take advantage of every opportunity, and then like the vast majority. And I think for most schools and institutions, there has to be that big discrepancy, because if they failed, if they made their rigor so rigorous, then they failed most people, because they wouldn't be an institution anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. When I just said I couldn't imagine not having my college experience, it's not like I can't imagine not having the education that I had today. Like that's obviously
where would
not what I meant.
All this knowledge?
But that's the same for my master's program too. I mean, it was like a means to an end, and I knew it was school, but I knew it was it was a joke, like the actual education that I got by and large.
It's a certificate that you must hand to the gatekeepers of the professional world we live in. It's not like it's not as if you leave college, and I don't know who I'm speaking to. I guess I'm just speaking in general, right? But I feel like I'm speaking to an audience of students. That's like who I want to be speaking to right now, of like high school students. It's not like, you're endowed forever with this knowledge, this knowledge base.
Right.
Maybe if you truly dove in and dedicated yourself wholly and completely to like truly developing your studies, or you're that into your area of your studies.
Yeah, that's
but
what
really
I'm saying. People can.
Yeah, you can.
For me, it was
really
just a coming of age story.
Yeah, it's a certificate you get to show to when you enter the professional environment. Like, hey, I have a relative level of competency. Like, I have my shit together, at least to some extent. I was able to get through college. I'm a functional adult. That's really what it seems like to me. And in law school, I live with 2 lawyers now, and I have a bunch of lawyer friends actually. And it's funny, right? Like, you always go to lawyers with legal questions, like, hey man, I have this legal question, and they never know, right? Because that's not what law school is. It's not like law school teaches you every law in the world, and so you know how to handle every single legal situation. What law school is, it's a demonstration that you're like a high-level cognitive person, that you're able to form arguments, see different sides, form a coherent argument, express that argument, to show to either a law firm or to the government, whomever, just if you're going off to private practice, to demonstrate, and then obviously have to take the bar as well, but just to demonstrate, hey, I have the capacity to practice law. Not that I'm an expert in every law. It's a ticket. It's a certificate for the gatekeeper. It serves a gatekeeper function.
What about the LSAT though? Isn't that like a lot of law?
Well, I think the LSAT, right? I think the LSAT is like the most academic part of law school. I think the LSAT is like, that it further weeds down the crop. You have undergrad, you have you have everyone goes to high school. Most people graduate high school. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm assuming the majority of Americans graduate high school, maybe not. And then it's like, okay, then you have to take the SAT, ACT to see if it's a rough measure of whether or not you can hack it in undergrad. And then you hack it in undergrad, but once again, you're not, like, I studied international affairs. I don't, like, all of a sudden I was like fucking a diplomat by the time I got undergrad. No, I got a general overview of, like, international politics and economics and shit, the dynamics of sovereign nations. But then I demonstrated, like, okay, really, it's international affairs. Like, okay, I'm ready to go to a master's program. Really, is what most people do.
Right. Let me tell you about my college degree when we get back to that.
I'm rambling about college in general.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, tell me about your college degree and, like, how you're. And
like I said, I was.
As you talked
about,
I
was going to say, I said I was in theater.
Tie that into what you were thinking about doing after school professionally.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good time. So I was theater originally, and then, like I said, like, talk about another situation where you're like small fish, big pond. Like, I got in there with, kids that could, like, act really well, and kids that could sing really well. And again, like, it was one of those things where, like, I was really actually kind of scared to put myself out there. And ironically, that's one of the worst occupations you could choose. If you're scared of, like, rejection, right? I needed to have way thicker skin. So I quickly, like, I enjoyed some of the theater classes, but I didn't enjoy all of them. And I didn't, like, eat, sleep, and breathe theater. Like Jamie knew every musical and, theater trivia and those kinds of things. So I kept it as one of my minors, but, like, I less and less was, like, even taking theater classes. Like, I did as few as possible, like, keep as minor or whatever. So I just kept, like, taking courses, and it ended up taking me 5 years to do all of it, because of, like, maybe a 0.7 didn't help out, things like that. But I went forever as undeclared. So I, like, had retracted the theater and I went undeclared. And I remember my advisor reaching out to me and being like, hey, like, you're in year 4. You have to declare something.
What's your major?
Yeah. And I mean, I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I remember talking to her like that. I remember being like, well, I don't know, so I'm not going to. Like, make me. Kind of a thing. And, like, her being like, well, this is for real. Like, I remember this conversation. This girl was probably, like, 26, bless her heart. But I remember her being like, well, we have this major, but we don't advertise it. But we call it a liberal arts degree. So you're still under the liberal arts college, but we would just let you have 3 minors. And I was like, so I don't really have to, like, do anything, like, any of the harder courses and anything. Like, I can just take, like, the one
like
level 100 and the 200s. Yeah. And she was like, yes. And I was like, and I had already done, like, a decent amount of, like, psych classes and sociology, because all of that was all liberal arty and interesting. And I'd already taken, like, my 101, like, biology and, like, this lowest math I could take and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, perfect. And it's so funny. Sign me up. And it's so funny because now, like, I remember saying things to people about, like, I'll have a BA, and they'll be like, what would, and I'll be like, and I minored in psych, sociology, and theater. And I remember people being like, whoa, 3 minors? And I'm like, yeah. But no major. So, yeah, that's what they let me out. And literally it was like, we don't, like, this is a huge exception thing, but, like, we got to get you the fuck out.
Right. This is becoming a wart on our institution.
Mhm. We're done with you. You're looking like you're scarring our, like, start to end date data. Right. So that was what I did. And then at that point I was dating a townie, and so we were living together, and so I was like, I'm not ready to, like, I was like that 30 in my head. This is what I was, because I'm not proud of it. But, like, in my head, I'm like that 32-year-old that, like, still lives in his frat house. Like, I was not ready to leave Oxford. I was not ready to give that life up. Even though I'd already done 5 years. Yeah.
You're pushing a little bit. Being a fifth-year senior is not like that outrageous.
No. But think about this. Now I'm already done with my 5th year. So I'm going into a 6th year. So now everyone that like started with me is long gone. You know, these are the people that were like freshmen or even maybe sophomores when I was a senior that came in that are around anymore. You know, I'm cycling through like a couple people. And so I graduated and I stayed there, and then I sold cell phones for a year.
Yep.
So,
but you graduated in 5 years, correct?
Yeah, I graduated in 5 years, and then I sold cell phones for a year. And I think I made. I think I made more.
So this is 03?
Yeah.
What do cell phones look like?
Ooh, that is such a good question. So we were just moving from like the analog like Nokias over to like the 2G evening where they like you had like a Samsung flip phone. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like or like, even like a the Razors were, Blackberries were hot. Colored screen, yes, but those were fancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Camera phones? I mean,
no.
Cameras on the phones? No cameras?
No. I mean, I don't think if there were, they were awful. Like I had one I remember, like this crazy phone was like shaped like a football, and you could play Snake still on it, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Dude, I remember being in high school. Okay, this has been right around the same time. Because I remember being in, I believe it was sophomore Spanish class in high school. So that for me would have been 04. So right around the time you're selling cell phones. And I remember a dude in my class, I didn't think I had, actually I think I got a cell phone fresh. You probably got me my first cell phone, honestly. I think I got my.
Guaranteed.
I think me and Morgan got them for Christmas my freshman year of high school, I believe. You were living with Robert, and you must have been working at the cell phone place.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I remember the dude in my sophomore Spanish class in high school listening to radio on a cell phone, and me being like, what the fuck? You can listen to the radio on a cell phone? Dude, now, this is not, what was it, 16? That's 16 years, I guess. Sounds like a long time. But, dude, I could make, well, first off, I have my own radio show now that I make on my cell phone. Like, I have my own radio station. And I could have my own TV station, essentially. Not just listen to TV or listen to radio, or excuse me, watch TV or listen to radio. I could make my own fucking radio station or own TV station from my fucking cell phone. It's crazy how fast technology is advancing.
Well, I mean, me still in high school or college, I was watching VHS, dude.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That was 9/11. Was college.
Yeah, you went to college in '98. Okay, so you graduate, and I'm assuming you didn't have like career ambitions or a career plan. You the cell phone gig. I believe you're pretty good at the cell phone gig, so it's probably just like, this makes money. I'm making money.
That was
this out later.
That was what was hysterical. It was like, first of all, I worked with 4 dudes. Okay, like my boss was the kind of guy that would he would walk out of the bathroom and he had like a roll of toilet paper still like in his pants, like just like it was like an episode of The Office. So the fact that I was like the top data and phone sales person out of our store was not a surprise. But I actually even was invited to go to some training and some particular conference, and they flew me out to, I think it was Seattle, and I was one of either the only or one of 2 people from our district that got to go, because I was the top salesperson for a quarter or something, and so they sent me there. And then
fast tracking, baby, fast tracking up with that singular wireless ladder.
This is AT&T wireless, actually, but it was, what was so crazy about it was when I got to that conference, like, then it was like, whoa, these people really like cell phones. And they like really like selling cell phones and really like knowing about cell phones. And I just needed a job, and I live in a small town, and I didn't want to wait tables anymore. Like, what? And so like I knew like I was a capable person, but I also never ever had any intention of like this being any type of career.
Right.
So I was like, that was actually probably, it was like flattering, but at the same time was like, ew.
Yeah.
So when I decided, like I broke up with him and decided I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was going to move back to Atlanta just because I was like, this is not good. Like I can't stay in Oxford anymore. This is done and not healthy. And so I remember Mom coming to get me and get all my stuff and whatever. And I put in for a transfer with AT&T just because that is something that I do have, is like I have a pretty strong work ethic and also just like a desire to support myself, at least to some extent. And so like I was like, I'm not going to just like live in Mom's house and eventually get a job. Like I'm going to transfer and like not have downtime and just try it. And so like I worked at like another store, but it was like that store was just like a very different situation. And I was
in Atlanta?
So yeah, it was over. Yeah, I can't remember where it was now. It wasn't super close to the house, but it was but it wasn't it was a pretty dead store. And I just like, again, like it was like, this is not what I want to do, even as like a side gig job. So really pretty quickly, like probably like 4 or 5 months in, I was already very actively, and I knew it was a stopgap, but again, like I was not comfortable, like just coming with no income. So I wanted to have something to continue and like figure it out while I did it. And that's just always kind of been my mindset. So I worked there and then quickly decided that I wanted to try special ed. And so and Mom got me a job as a para, like in 2 seconds in Forsyth County.
Okay. Yeah. That's
yeah. And so I started working as a para because like I think I moved like over the summer or something. So I worked AT&T for the summer, and then I started the school year as a para. And I also worked at Ann Taylor Loft a couple nights a week.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Like just for extra income.
Where did the special education thing come from all of a sudden? Our mom is a school psychologist, so that must have been. Yeah, Mom's a school psych. Like teachers and teaching has always been like accessible and not a foreign. Like we've always just been really open and exposed to that occupation or, derivatives thereof. And so that was just always something that it just seemed very easily attainable, I think. And I've always liked kids. And I always worked in like daycares and things like that. And even in college, I found myself like asking the Methodist Church if I could volunteer in their preschool. What?
So I always just,
really?
So I just always kind of, So I just kind of found myself going back.
This is like the most enlightening part of this interview to hear that. I didn't realize that at all. I didn't realize the child thing. I was going to kind of get into it when we get to you having your own kids. Okay. I didn't realize it.
I've always loved like the 3 to 7. Like I love that age.
So you are done with Amelia, your oldest. Like you.
What? No, I'll stretch to 8 because she's mine. But like my life right now is pretty serious. Like it's a lot. But I love what I'm doing right now. It's stressful because I'm also like I'm doing my post grad work and my supervision, and I'm also working, doing the ABA stuff too. But
you got to hold on real quick. We're going to go on a tangent here real quick, but just real quick, sum up what you're doing now, and then we'll go back to Parapro and Terra Loft time. So what are you doing now?
Oh, so anyway, So what I'm doing right now is I'm teaching the kids during the day at home. But
that's right. So we didn't quite clarify that. Let me clarify that real quick. You've started up essentially this little school, obviously through impetus is COVID, but you have obviously you have 3 kids. The youngest is not in elementary school age, but it seems like he's doing. He's got a preschool little curriculum, and then so not only do you have your 3, and then you have 2 friends, and so you have like a 5-person schoolhouse.
Yeah, and I did that on purpose because I knew that family needed childcare, and I knew on my end I could do it, with those particular kids. And then the huge bonus on top of that was how close the girls are, like my youngest and her youngest and my oldest and her oldest. So it was just like a really good fit. So
dude,
so far,
I know it's probably fucking overwhelming how much work to like run a school out of your house. And then I want you to talk here in a second about the other stuff you're doing. But to me, this is such a cool little, not experience that you're having. Honestly, that's what I want to do when I have kids. I don't want to send my fucking kids to school. I've worked in schools. I know how inefficient those fucking places are. And it's like it's like mom when you were in the Louisiana elementary school. Like, what? She's not taking a fucking nap. Like,
well, I will caveat
in the encyclopedia. Like, I want to put. That's why I'm trying to be as intentional as possible as like transitioning to fatherhood, and part of doing this. The primary reason I'm being a nanny out here in LA is like as a father. I mean, there are lots of perks of it, but the primary one is this, internship for fatherhood. I want to be able to hit the ground running when I have my kids, and I don't want to be in the position mom's in where it's like she can't fully customize or control your education or give you the best education possible. She's kind of, from afar having to work with the teachers to customize your education while these teachers obviously have a full classroom on their own. Fuck that, dude. I just want to get my kids in the, up until, puberty, basically, just cover all that shit. Get kindergarten through 12th grade covered by, the time pubic hair is coming in, and then maybe send them into high school, obviously for sports, and somehow, obviously, throughout that childhood time, get them exposed to other kids. You don't want them to become real fucking booger eaters, sniffing glue kids. But I think I'm going to have no problem with the social aspect of it. But, man, I want to teach my own kids in my living room at an accelerated pace, exactly what you're doing now. And hopefully
but that's not exactly. Let me clarify, though. It's not exactly what I'm doing right now. Because you have to remember, my kids are doing virtual school.
Yeah. Sorry. It's all it's an impetus of COVID. But if I was 100% in on only being able to focus on my kids, I would have probably pulled them out completely and be legitimately homeschooling them. The two major factors for say you're your husband's CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. You guys have $1 million income, no financial issues whatsoever. Even regardless of COVID, you would like to homeschool the kids at an accelerated rate?
Oh,
is that what you're saying?
No. I'm talking about right now, given this situation and given my reality, if I didn't have other things that I wasn't willing to completely drop and give up, if I was willing to drop and give them up, I would have pulled the kids out for this year. And I would have just completely dove into figuring out a homeschool.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
There's some other private schools and things like that have really spoken to me in terms of frameworks, or even as private schools, they're really more of the modern 21st century one room schoolhouse type stuff, like Acton Academy and those things. But but because I'm not willing to personally give up what I've been currently working on and all the things the demands that has placed on me. And on top of that, I, especially with my oldest child, know that I would be fighting with resistance there because she has been traditionally schooled for a while. There would be some significant unschooling if I were to do that.
Right.
And she's in a dual language program that I can't provide her. Those are some of the things where for now, I was this is kind of we're in this kind of middle gray area. And
sorry to interrupt real quick. Is she dual languaging through COVID e-learning?
Kind of. So there don't have nearly as much.
It has to get lost, though. I mean, that can't.
Yeah.
That seems like
so not only does a lot of it get lost, but also by the time they're in third grade with the dual language model, they're already supposed to be at a 50-50. And Ironically, I think part of it was just staffing issues, but she's in an accelerated math program. So that's obviously in English because they don't have a dual language teacher who's also gifted certified. And even if they did, there's only like 3 or 4 kids that are in the dual language program. So like just they don't have the numbers to justify it. So that's obviously in English. And then they split language arts, social studies, and Spanish and science. So she's really only getting like 1/3 of her instruction in Spanish. So if it were like my perfect utopia school, I would let her sit through the Spanish part because they do like some science and current event type stuff and she's just getting that like exposure. But then I would also be putting her on like a Duolingo type of a curriculum on the computer so she's getting the more like academic Spanish because her writing is abysmal. And that was always my plan. We haven't gotten there yet because I literally like she doesn't have enough time in the day. So I'm still trying to weed through like what I want to prioritize her doing and what I feel comfortable allowing her not to do. But I also have these other people's children that like how many things can I take away from that? So we're not in my perfect scenario right now, but it's still way better than I think it could be.
Right.
But yeah, stay on top of the Spanish. I hated Spanish throughout. I started Spanish, I guess, like kind of semi-regular, I think in 5th grade, and then a little bit in middle school, and then I think I took a class every semester in high school, and I hated it. I hated Spanish. It was like the fuck-off class. It was like your class, you didn't take it seriously. I never took it seriously. And then that, I always say this, it's like one of the few times our mom, like, basically told me what was up, like told me I had to do something, was when she had kind of decided when I went to school that I was going to minor in Spanish. And so I did, and I was kind of on board with that. Like I wanted to see like if my Spanish, whatever I picked up in high school Spanish, could hack it in college. But after my first, I think it was my first semester Spanish class, I got a B+, and the rest of my classes I was just smoking my freshman year, just A's, like easiest shit ever. And the Spanish one was the only one that was challenging. And I remember calling her up after I got the B+ and like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a 4.0. And that was the one of the few times in my life I can remember our mom just be like, you are not dropping Spanish. You are minoring in Spanish. And me just being like, oh,
Isn't that funny? Because she'd already had that knockout drop down with me over German. She was ready for you.
Yeah, and I'm so glad she did, dude. I mean, granted, I've learned much more Spanish outside of a college classroom than I ever learned in a classroom. Don't get me wrong, but it put me on that path. Like, I hated Spanish in college too. I fucking hated it. I hated Spanish class, especially like Spanish lit, like having to read in Spanish. Oh my God, I hated it. But it gave me the confidence I needed to at least, especially going off into teaching in a heavily Latino school district, to like communicate with parents in Spanish. And then it gave me the confidence to do work down in Central America. Like if I had it, I knew I wasn't fluent in Spanish by any means by the time I was doing all of these things. But I had this baseline level of confidence that like, okay, the biggest challenge in either interacting with foreign populations or living in foreign countries is the language barrier. That's like the most palpable sense of discomfort. It's like I can't communicate. And while I knew I wasn't going to be able to communicate fluently, I knew my Spanish needed a ton of work. It was just enough of that like foundation that I needed to like totally change my life. Like,
did Morgan have that too?
Dude, I don't think Morgan had any fucking Spanish.
I think she did.
I think she took it in high school. Like we all had to take foreign language in high school, but once again, and granted, Morgan took her studies a lot more seriously than we did. So maybe her high school Spanish was the equivalent of like my minor in college or something along those lines. But I don't think she took any Spanish in college. Morgan was too busy getting like a fucking master's degree by the time she was 19 to dick around with like a minor in Spanish. But I think Morgan, Morgan's Morgan, dude. I think she's just like, fuck it, I'm going to Honduras. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, she is fearless when it comes to international travel.
Yeah. All All right, cool. So, sorry, we went on a major tangent there.
No, one thing I wanted to say about my kids and education with my kids, like, even when Amelia was 2, like, I put her into Montessori, and I kind of, like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but, like, I knew that, like, I just didn't love the idea of, like, them all being in the public school system, and I still don't, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out, like, how uncomfortable I want to make them with a transition, or if I don't, or if I can make it work. Like, right now I've just been supplementing the hell out of what they get. Like, so, I don't know. There's got to be a better way, though.
Yeah.
So there's somebody who figured it out somewhere.
Yeah. No, let's hop back to where we were. So you where we left off is you're a parapro. You're now entering the education field. So at that point, you're like, I'm not working this fucking cell phone store. So you're thinking education is going to be a career, or at least I'm going to, pursue it.
So what I thought was I'm going to try it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking at some schools around and see if there's any like relative fast tracks that I could get on to get a teaching certification, like see what that looks like. Simultaneously, I want to like get my foot in the door and just try, not even necessarily with the district, but more just like to try it out to see if it's something I like.
Right.
That's what I did. And then I started in January of that same year on my master's in special education at North Georgia. So while I was being a parapro and working at law.
What is it about the special education versus just like normal elementary ed or early childhood ed?
I don't know. I'm thinking. I think this is going to sound ridiculous because I don't really believe this, but I think maybe I thought this at the time, like just saying I am a third grade teacher or something like that just sounded like so boring or regular or normal that at least if I was like, I'm a special ed teacher or I'm a librarian, like something like that just sounded at least a little bit different.
You're special.
And sounded a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, dude, I know the exact sentiment. I was not like leading you into that answer by any means. That answer had to cross my head when I asked the question. But you saying that, I know exactly what you mean. I felt the same way. Because I taught special ed too, and we had different, similar but different paths. So we got there. I applied to an organization. I didn't really get to choose. I just applied to be a teacher, generally speaking, and then from there, they got to choose what kind of teacher I was going to be. I could have been a middle school science teacher. I could have been, like you said, standard third grade teacher. I just got put into the behavior school, the school for the kids that have gotten kicked out of their normal public school, and that falls under, behavior disorder falls under special education, just like, like Down syndrome would, or any other disorder a kid might suffer from. And so that's how I got into the special education world. And I remember thinking when I got placed there, damn, I would much rather just be like standard elementary school teacher. I remember thinking like I would prefer to be elementary school teacher. It's just cleaner. I want the experience of being a teacher. That's like the most traditional teaching experience, right? Being an elementary school teacher, like having your class all day long. You teach them all of the subjects. You are the teacher.
I think also, though, I think also because I wanted to try it out, being a para meant intrinsically I was already working with a special ed population because most of the paras were supporting special ed. And a lot of the more fast-tracked exception-type certification programs I found were for the more high-needs areas.
Yeah.
So
take anybody.
Like, okay,
do a course on Saturday. We'll sign you. We'll get you in the class on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the sentiment, dude. Once I was in special education, and I did get really satisfied because ultimately I did end up at a behavior school, and so I did have my classroom all day long. And instead of having 20 or 30 kids, I had just had like somewhere between 7 and 12. But after, and they all had severe behavior challenges, so that was different. But other than like the structure of the day was like an elementary school. I was a teacher for all subject areas. They were with me all day long.
Yes.
And so I actually ended up feeling like I got the best of both worlds. I got the traditional elementary school teacher experience, and then I know the exact sentiment you're expressing. Like, I love to say to people, just totally narcissistically or whatever, egotistically, like, yeah, I'm a special education teacher. And especially as a male, it's like, oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, too, because, like, for me, in retrospect, it's solidified that I was glad that I didn't do, like, a general education, because I don't have the organization executive functioning / desire to deal with that many kids, and that many rules and routines and structure. And you can have and that's ironic but like you have a lot more leeway when you have a lot smaller group, especially if you're like a co-teacher or a resource teacher, and you yes, you have a caseload, but like you're not having to do attendance that I always forgot to do, and
that's the
take lunch orders
job right there. Co-teacher job.
Yeah, right.
Co-teacher job is the sweet job. You just, you don't even do the lesson planning or really the execution of the presentation of the curriculum. You're kind of just there to help out the kids who are struggling.
You're just a well-paid para at that point.
You're a tutor, yeah. I mean, you're a well-paid para, exactly. That's the gig right there. All right, so you ended up doing. Talk us through your educational career up until leaving the profession. Take us through that timeline.
So my first year as a para.
Anyway, you know what I mean. Go ahead.
My first year as a para was a pre-K special needs class. So it was like 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 year olds, and the teacher that I worked with was horrific. Like, he used to mandate a nap in the middle of the day, which wasn't even really supposed to be part of their day. Which, I mean, you can argue that either way, but he would like lay down and nap with them. Yeah,
he's taking a breather.
Yeah. He would tell me to like wash his dishes. Like, he never had anything planned ever for any. I mean, like, we had kids, like nonverbal kids with autism that had like no communication, no picture exchange, no dynamic device, no sign language, like nothing. He was just awful. He was just a warm body. So like, for me, it was kind of like, oh God, yeah, I'm gonna have to do this. Kind of a thing.
Like, I'm gonna have to take over this class.
Not necessarily that class, but just be part of like, be at least one more teacher that's not a joke.
Oh, so that gave you inspiration. Like, okay, I need to be a contributing member or contributing factor in this whole special education. Okay, I got you. Cool.
Yeah, but then ironically, I had a good friend who I worked at the loft with, who was working at a very very fancy private school, and she had gotten approached by like a former coworker who was opening a new fancy private school. These were Catholic schools. Yep. And they were opening this brand new Catholic school, and so she knew that I was finishing my stuff and getting my certification. So she's like, "You should apply. Oh my God, blah blah blah." And so I ended up applying there, and it was intriguing because it was private, so you had like a ton of autonomy because like they didn't even literally have the school built yet. Like, they were retrofitting this office park.
Yeah, I remember moving into it. I
could essentially, like, I had my pick of, like, what grade did you want to teach? Like, they let me teach a regular general ed class because, again, you have more autonomy with being a private school. And so she loved the fact that I had the special ed stuff because, like, I was going to be essentially, like, their only touchstone for anything special ed. So we, quote-unquote, had a case manager, even though, like, I barely knew anything of anything.
Yeah.
So I taught pre-K and preschool at a private Catholic school for 2 years. It was a pretty sweet gig, but I also did.
That's a nice introduction. That's a good way to transition into the profession.
Yeah. And they actually like matched the salary for the public school for the county system that they were in. So I mean, it was great. I quickly learned that, like, and this was later, but like, because I ran the gamut. Because then once I moved to Chicago, right after that, I worked on like the west side, like heavy gang territory public school, and I worked self-contained 3rd through 5th graders. It was 100% African American. You know,
dude,
like
that's
literally
so funny.
like
I never thought about how the direct juxtaposition. You went from the private
it
private
could not be
Catholic
more stark.
school in Metro Atlanta to the west side Chicago, the West Chicago school.
Yeah, where a rat crawled across my shoe during the interview. And the principal insisted on walking me out to my car, probably so I didn't die, because she wanted me to come back.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really crazy. But I quickly realized that, like, as much as I loved some of those kids, like, that situation was so difficult for me. I didn't feel like I was adequately capable of making, like, a real difference in their life. Like, maybe I'm talking about the inner city kiddos, like, maybe for, like, the few hours that they were in our building, but so many of those kids, like, had such trauma in their lives that, like, they could care less about school. Like, they couldn't even focus on it, you know. Like, it was just it was miserable. I mean, I had some parents I never met. You know, most of the parents I had never even seen. I had a student who had epilepsy so severely that I had to keep a magnet in my drawer in my desk that you had to, like, touch to the other magnet that was under her skin to, like, essentially, like, jumpstart her. And if that didn't work, and if that didn't work, you were supposed to page security. And we had security guards on every floor in this building. And
in an elementary school.
In an elementary school, K-5. I had one student in my class who had been born in the downstairs bathroom when her mom was in
elementary school. I'm sorry, say that again. Say that last part again.
When her mom was in 5th grade, she had left PE class because she said her stomach hurt and gave birth to the child who was now one of my students in the bathroom at the school.
Dude, that's fucking believable.
So to go back to
a 10-year-old. It's like
the
earliest possible time you could possibly get pregnant.
Yeah. So the epilepsy thing, like, so the way that this child would have a seizure, it's not like the kind you picture where they're, like, convulsing. She would just freeze.
Yeah.
She would freeze like an absolute, it's crazy. It's like an absolute mannequin. Stiff joints, everything. The only thing you can see is sometimes a little bit of eye movement, like the lids, and, like, sometimes some tears would come down her cheeks.
Oh, my fuck.
But super rigid. And so I would get that magnet, and this one time in particular, it didn't work. And I'm pressing for security, and nobody's coming. Probably because they're dealing with something crazy somewhere else, or they don't want to. I don't know. But so I get out my cell phone. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Then I go to my desk, and I call to the front office, and nobody answers.
Ugh.
So then I get out my cell phone, and I call 911. And then they finally come up there, like the paramedic. But I get written up for not following protocol that the front office is the one that has to make the call on whether you call 911 or not. There was another time she had a seizure.
Insert Alex's anti-government libertarian rant here.
There was another time she had a seizure in the lunchroom, and I didn't have my magnet, so I literally had to pick her up like a plastic Halloween skeleton decoration and carry her over my shoulder into the front office because no one was coming when I paged, and I literally just had to lay her down like a piece of wood on the, like, bench in the front office and be like, okay, make the call.
Step 2 completed. Step 2 of checklist initiated.
God. So what I was going to say earlier was I quickly learned from that stark difference between my private Catholic and K-Town was I don't care how annoying and entitled private school kids and or parents are, I would all day long prefer to have parents that are involved. Like, I don't want to feel like the second they leave this building, all of this was for naught. Like, I need to know that.
Yep. You just summarized, in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, factually for me personally, the single greatest reason I am no longer a teacher.
Yeah.
Either lack of parental involvement or the overwhelming frustration of knowing that your utmost and utter sacrifice for the betterment of this child that's not even your own is going to be flushed down the toilet the minute they return to their house.
Yeah, like, I just couldn't handle it. And I know that's...
It's so mind-bogglingly discouraging and frustrating and just depressing. Sorry.
Yeah, I lost a lot. No, it's okay. I lost a lot of weight that year, but I also just knew, like, if I was going to stay in this occupation, like, I couldn't stay at that school. I just couldn't. And
I hear you, dude. I hear you. I mean, I think the thing for me was that, from an education standpoint, that was the only thing I wanted to do. I don't want to, like, I never wanted to become a teacher. Like, I never liked hanging out with, I like kids fine, but it's not like I have a passion for kids, like I have a passion for sports or whatever. I just recognized that education was, I thought, like, you know, our mom had indoctrinated us into this way of thinking, and I'm glad she did that. Like, self-sacrifice is the most important thing you can do with your time here on earth, helping other people, less fortunate than yourself. And education, to me, having studied international affairs and being truly exposed for 4 years in college to, at least academically in books, the inequities that exist around the world, I was like, okay, what is some way that I can alleviate this situation and can contribute to the development of society, elimination of poverty? How can I as an individual contribute in some way? Like, okay, becoming a teacher seems like that would be beneficial, right? Intervene at the earliest possible stage. And so my interest was that for teaching was, you know, like, this grandiose notion that I was helping make the world a better place. So that was my primary impetus for being a teacher. And so I never had any interest in, like, being a teacher in the suburbs or anywhere else where I figured kind of like, I don't know, I guess I'm a narcissist or I have, an ego. I think a lot of myself that, like, oh, anyone could do that job in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
My special talents and abilities are, like, of no use there because you could just, plug in any educator in the suburbs and those kids are, the outcome is not going to be really any different, if I'm there. But I feel like I played a special role in difficult schools with difficult kids living in difficult circumstances. But dude, that's a grind, man. You have to. I don't know how people stay in those types of schools over the long term. You have to just be super passionate about children and education.
Yeah.
It's funny when you brought up the cell phone conference thing. I remember thinking that all the time as a teacher when I would go to teaching education conferences, and all these teachers super into, like, the latest reading strategies, the latest new way to teach long division, and me just being like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to get the kid who's, like, who's a violent criminal, and, like, let me try to work some magic on him. I don't give a fuck about, like, the new reading strategy.
Right.
That's when I started to realize, like, oh, I'm not really, this game is not in the long term for me. Like, I'm not into education. I'm into, like, the challenge of the circumstance. And then once the whole parents, after years and years of feeling like parents are really negating all the progress I was trying to make, it was just too much. Yeah, you could definitely stick with it, but I felt like my energy was being sapped, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Anyway, sorry to interject my story.
No, it's okay. Like, for me, like, I've always found issue with every place that I've worked, whether it was in education or not. And I don't know if it's, like, just been, like, more like human nature, like grass is greener thing, but I always find it fascinating, like, that my husband's worked at the same place since summers at high school, right? And he's 42 years old. Like, I don't envy it. I just envy the fact that someone's like, yeah, I like it. Like,
totally. I envy the fuck out of that, dude. I envy the fuck out of that. Oh my God, are you kidding?
Well, I guess I'm saying I don't envy it because, like, there's so many times in his career and his particular situation where I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
I mean, I don't envy it in the sense of like, oh, I want to trade lives with him. I envy it in the sense of like, I wish I could
the capacity to be able to do that. Yeah.
The capacity to just like be content, to be like satisfied and
That's a
I don't want to say settle, but like to just feel a sense of comfort and stability and not feel perpetually restless and like really like constantly criticizing, not necessarily negatively in terms of like complaining or saying negative things about the situation or people, but just constantly analyzing my professional situation or life situation in general, and never feeling like settled. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, we've had that conversation many times. It's like he's finally come to that realization, and I think he'll never completely come to that realization because just like I understand that about him, but I don't understand it because I can't, like, it's so far from my own personality. And so same thing, like on the flip side, like he's come to the realization that like, wow, every 3 to 5 years, Katie's all about like, let's uproot everything, you know, like I thought maybe once we had 3 kids that would change, but he's quickly learning like it's not about that.
No.
It's like this, you know.
No.
And so,
but thus is the yin and yang of life, and this is kind of a deeper conversation. I think we've touched on it before, but it's like that is. I've definitely touched on this in a number of podcast episodes, but like the opposite of tracks phenomenon, yin and yang, plus and minus, male and female. That's real. That is life. That is how life. That's literally how life is made. Penis, vagina. And it's, I think, for harmony and progress within life, that's like, I think that's what stable reality in relationships is based upon. You and me are totally opposite in that way, but I think that is necessary for harmony or growth or, I don't know, serendipity. I think, you know, the concept of a soulmate. I don't believe in any concept of like there's one true love for people out there. I think there's many people could have sustainable life partnerships with, but I think like this concept of soulmate or feeling a sense of like falling in love is very much based in like this yin and yang concept. You found someone that complements you. Whatever that's in the background, can we, what is that?
I don't know.
Okay. Like a wind or something splashing.
Oh, I was in my laundry room, like cleaning things up. Maybe that's what it was.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think that yin and yang concept is real. I think it's truly the basis of like existence, honestly. So West Side Chicago, then you from there go just
So from the West Side, I was like, I lost like a ton of weight that year. Like it was just a depressing year, and so I knew I had to get out for my own mental health. And so I was like, pretty much was just like, whatever, like I'll take anything. And I'd always worked with children with autism, whether it was like a specific like autism class. No, not necessarily at that point, but I'd always had like a couple of kids that were identified as being on the spectrum. And it was always like one of my favorite like populations of kids to work with. So I applied to a place that was a, therapeutic day school, and it was a year-round school. So I worked there for almost 2 years, and it was private, and it was therapeutic specifically for kids on the spectrum. So we were pretty significant behaviors, some comorbid disabilities, but all in all, I mean, it was awesome too. It was just pretty far from home, and it was year-round, so that was kind of weighing on me. So I always kind of like had decided I wanted to get back into like maybe getting into Chicago public schools again, just because it was like a sweet gig, like as far as like salary wise and like benefits and stuff, like you wanted to be in CPS. And so I was always trying to find a job that was like closer to my house and like a decent school on the north side. And so once I found that, and then I worked at the charter school, it was like 2 blocks from my house. So that was great. And I loved that one. I got to pick like K to 2nd grade, and I did resource and code teaching, and then I was the case manager, and then they asked me to do like full-time case management, and I essentially like made my own job title and was like the dean for K to 4 and did case management there. And that principal left to go start another school and asked me to come with her, and I was going to, but by that point we had grown out of our condo because now we had Amelia, who was 1. And so we decided we were going to move out to the suburbs because Tyson wanted to take a bigger role in his job, and we were going to let his mom like nanny for Amelia. So I left those schools and went and worked in a small town in Illinois doing self-contained autism again. Mm-hmm. And then by that point, I was just starting to feel like really burned out. Like once I went backwards in my mind from case management and special ed coordinator to being a self-contained teacher again, I was like, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about it. I didn't know if I ever really considered it like that. It's true. And it wasn't an option in anything other than charter or private school for me to do the same type of role, because you have to have, out here, you have to have an admin master's certificate and like a license, and I don't have an admin one. So I was like, I don't really want to go to school for that. I don't really have a desire to do like, because to do like the admin one, you have to do like the full principalship internship. I'm like, no, I don't. No. So yeah, it was just like, I just don't like it. Whatever. So I worked 3 years out here, and then when we'd already had child 2, and then when we found out we were pregnant with Elliot, Tyson was like officially taking over. His dad was fully retiring, and he was going to be the president of his company. So we were like, okay. And so that's when I quit. That was great.
It just didn't make sense. The 3 kids to pay daycare for all 3 of these kids, and then now that you've got...
Oh, yeah, because also by that point, like, it wasn't working out, like, nanny-wise for his mom to be watching our kids much. And so we were either having to... Because we were sharing her with his sister. And so we were either having to, like, get her part-time but also hire a nanny, or, like, we were just defaulting and letting her work with... or she was just working with the other family. So it was like, it just didn't make sense anymore. It was spreading her too thin, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it was just like, hey, how about we get rid of all this, like, whatever, and I just stay home with them. So we did. And then, of course,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I knew I wasn't going to be happy, like, just staying home. Not that, again, like, that definitely can be a full-time job. Believe me. I know that you know. But
at any point,
I knew I wanted to work towards something.
Sorry, finish that. You still want to work towards
I just said I knew I wanted to work towards something professionally, and so I wanted to work towards, like, some additional type of certification, and I knew it would mean probably going back to school in some capacity, unless I wanted to work in education specifically. And so I kind of did some soul searching on that, and I was like, I came to the realization, like, at this point in my life, like, I didn't want to do, like, a full, like, I didn't want to do, like, a full leaving of the educator, like, my current career path. I wanted to do more of, like, just a pivot. Yeah, I wanted to do more of a pivot. So.
Yeah. And so, yeah, tell us about that.
So a year ago, I started my post-grad certificate or coursework to be a board-certified behavior analyst. I'm still working on that. So I have 15 of my 18 hours completed. So I have one more class that'll finish in December. And then it's really stringent, actually, it's kind of refreshing in a way, but also in another way it's super annoying because there's a ton of red tape. But you have to do a ton of supervision. So you do some that's considered direct, which would be like direct service with clients, and then a lot of indirects, and that's more like programs and assessments and that type of stuff. But you have to do 15 hours of that. 1,500 hours of that before you can even sit for the exam. And then there's a really rigorous certification exam on top of it. So it's not a joke. And then
1,500 hours, dude. That's like 200, almost 200 8-hour days.
That's correct.
And that's just like supervision. That's just essentially
and you can get paid. You can get paid doing some of it, particularly like the direct work, and some of the indirect, like if you're more of like a program manager role. But no matter what, you're being paid as a much lesser certification level. So it's
not more than a full year. That's
right. It's not necessarily it's not necessarily an unpaid internship, but ironically, if you're not wanting to work, some people actually pay people to be their supervisors. So, I mean, it can go all over the place with what you're willing to do.
Sounds like getting a little shady there.
So,
what exactly, I should know this, right? I worked actually in this field, right? I worked as a behavior teacher for kids with behavior issues. Mm-hmm. But and I know there's not like one specific thing, but generally, say the job title again, and then just give like a general overview of what that job is.
Yeah. So a board certified behavior analyst is somebody who is specializing and certified in the field of applied behavior analysis, which is based off of experimental applied behavior analysis, which is all like B.F. Skinner's research.
Okay.
Which,
so like in more layman terms, kids with behavior, a kid has a behavior issue, you come in to assess the situation, see what the problem is, obviously identify what
it's based off of the function. It's based off of assessing and determining what a function of a behavior is, and then modifying the environment and the antecedents and consequences to either increase that behavior or decrease that behavior, depending on what your goal is.
Right. It's really what.
And primarily using.
Level, go ahead.
So I was just going to say primarily, as much as possible, using reinforcement. Although punishment is an option, it's just supposed to be considered like the surgery or the last resort.
Right. I have thoughts on that. I'll save them for another day.
Yeah, I know you do.
I think the stick is just as valuable as the carrot. But that does, so that could be in a school setting. So you could be a behavior analyst in a school, but you could also be a behavior analyst in like a private setting, like in someone's home, working directly with the family.
So there's quite a few different avenues, and so traditionally it kind of came out of like the behavior mod school which was all like more of a like menu or script of how to change behaviors, more just like overarching strategies, and you're more just looking at like topography of behaviors, whereas now it's very much individualized and idiosyncratic, and you're specifically looking at functions or multiple functions, whatever. But also on top of that, it's also been stereotypically predominantly like behavior analysts are here to reduce problem behaviors, and that's what they're for. But there's a ton of skill acquisition that ABA is really, really valuable for too. So slowly that's being recognized more and more and more and more too, that BCBAs are really valuable for like increasing skills, not just for decreasing. And on top of that, there's also a subset of ABA called OBM, which is organizational behavior management, and that's organizational behavior like in terms of like companies. So they have people so kind of think of like office space.
Going corporate. Sell out and go corporate.
So that's another area.
You have to see the fucking money in that. Seriously. So when are you finishing up? Like when are you ready to like go and when are you done with your education certification? And when you are done, what do you want to do?
Okay, so one of the so they have a lot of BCBAs in public schools, but I shouldn't say they have a lot. They have some BCBAs in public schools, and I think it's very state dependent on how many. Like in certain areas of Illinois, that's becoming more and more prevalent, but most school districts around me have either none to like a max of like 3. So they're spread pretty thin. So you obviously know like those people aren't going into like a self-contained autism class and writing skill acquisition programs, right? And supporting special ed teachers that have no idea what they're doing.
They're dealing with like the lowest hanging fruit.
The big problems, yeah.
Right. It's like,
so
bringing a knife or a gun to school.
Me. Yeah, that does not interest me. That's just putting out fires all day. No, thank you.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now currently is I'm working with a private company that does ABA in-home therapy for children with autism. So we do behavior reduction, sure, but we do a ton of acquisition as well. We're looking into getting some clinics where that would just be an option if the parents wanted to bring them to the clinic for therapy as well. It's just another, setting. And then also the owner of my company has like on her like short list, the idea of eventually creating a school. That's very, very preliminary, but as of right now, that's something I'm really interested in, be a school for kids on the spectrum. Yeah.
So you're already, even though you're not done, well, when are you going to finish with the education?
So
part?
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done with the classes in December. I'll be done with my supervision not too far after that, like January or February.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
But you're already working in the field and with the specific company who you think you're going to continue working with once the education part is done?
Correct.
And are you going to do? Well, I guess it's probably dependent on COVID and e-learning and shit. Are you planning? Are you planning on trying to go back full time, or is that dependent on how much of you running a school out of your house develops?
Okay, so saying like everything, like hypothetically, everything went back to normal next school year. Like, let's just go ahead and, for argument's sake, say this year looks like this, right?
Right.
Like next school year, like 2021, 22 or whatever, they were back in school. If that were the case, I would still have Elliot at home. So I would probably.
That'd be his last year, though, right?
Yeah, I would probably like to work part-time if it were an option, or like 2/3 time if it were an option, because I can do a lot of my hours in the evening.
Yeah.
But I would have to get like some kind of nanny, which is what I did last spring. So for when the kids, like I was doing it where I worked like 2 or 3 days a week, and the kids got home from school, I had a nanny getting them off the bus, and she stayed with them until Ty got home at 6. So.
Right. Wait, when was this?
Last spring, because I was doing in-home therapy. Well, I don't know if she was a babysitter.
I didn't know that.
It's Tyson's cousin's wife. Yeah, she came 2 or 3 days a week while I worked with a little girl.
Was this during COVID?
No, well, it stopped when COVID hit.
Okay.
It was from November to March.
Okay.
She would actually come at like 2 while Elliot was asleep, and she stayed till 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about going back to work full time? Are you excited about the prospect? Are you also, if you could talk about like your emotional response to like your little babies getting close to all being out on their own?
Yeah. I'm terrified of the idea where everyone's eventually out of the house, just because especially right now, we've gone back to being 100% together 100% of the time.
Yeah, I know.
Like
it's really
it was
cool.
super.
I know.
Yeah.
COVID is a crazy time, but like I'm really trying personally,
like to soak it up
every day to try to find the positives in all of it. And this is this for me, your little schoolhouse is I'm getting like joy out of it. I know, and I'm having to deal with like the frustrations of running a fucking school while trying to to have a job and finish up essentially a master's degree or PhD or how whatever the equivalent is. But I don't know. This is it's such a special thing in my head. Like, oh my God, all of my nieces and nephews are together, like going to school with my older sisters, their teacher in the living room. I'm like losing my.
I will say though,
right
one
now,
of the
getting
things.
so emotional. I want to be there. I want to be there with it. I want to be there in the living room. I want to be teaching them too so bad. I wish I didn't.
One of the things I'll say though, I don't feel like nearly as much of their teacher right now as much as like I am more like their para and their like. Right. Like their conductor, essentially, right? And I want to do more of the teaching piece, but I also know, like I was listening to you about like how you want to teach your kids. I don't know if my personality, particularly with my oldest, I don't know if me being her teacher, by and large, it would be the best thing for her.
Right.
And I just recognize that because our personalities are so similar.
Well, that's why this time is so. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being. I'm always. I'm very cynical.
I'm really
a lot of the
grateful.
time, but like with this particular situation, this is like perfect. You don't have to be their teacher. You can kind of be in this involved but removed role. To me, I don't know. It just seems so special. And once again, it's easy for me to say outside looking in, but like it's almost. I know you're not her teacher. That would be more stressful. It's kind of cool that you kind of just get to be. It's like you're constantly. Like they get their mom to come to school with them every day type of thing. Which
it's like I'm constantly everyone's room mom. Then I get to see all of them all together.
Exactly.
I'm spread way too thin to be doing as much as I want to be doing, but
yeah, that's the
by and large,
you truly appreciate it because you have to, every day you have to deal with life.
Right. So like I had to take a final on Thursday night, and I had to get an 80 in order to get my A in the class, and I got an 82, right? I was like, oh, like that's a little close for comfort, but I made it. Like that's not normally how I roll.
What does an A in the class mean at this point in your life and professional career? Like what? That's just for you personally, huh?
Well, and ultimately, yeah, it means nothing. It more was just honestly like, okay, so I'm going to need to go back and study all of this before I take that final test. At the for the certification.
But you're like invested. If I was in your shoes, like raising a family, being a wife, thinking about like transitioning into a new career while having essentially like a 2/3 job, really a full-time job because you have all of these different grade levels. And granted, you're not the full-time teacher, but like running that little schoolhouse and delivery room is kind of full-time job. You have a lot on your plate right now. To me, if I was looking at like the certification education part, I would totally just be like, whatever gets me the piece of paper. But like you're invested. You want the fucking A. That's admirable.
Well, it's just funny because it's like if you work this hard on balancing all of it, like you want like it's one of those things where like when you have if you're doing so many things at the same time, like you hate to not be doing any of them really well. Right. Like I just said, like I have to give up some of the stuff that I want to be doing with the classroom and the teaching because I also have this job and I'm working 15 hours for my ABA company and I'm doing school. And so like you want to feel like you're at least doing okay at all of them, but it just like kills you that you can't like the final 10% is like the finish work. Like that's the cool stuff that makes it like
right.
stand out and
special.
That's a good point. So it's annoying,
It's like the A is like the fun part on like to where your life your life is so real all the time. Like my life is so surreal all the time. Like I wake up in quarantine. I have no obligations to anyone. The only responsibility I have is to make sure this beautiful little angel baby who her and I at this point are so I don't know what the word is, symbiotic. Like it's like
how are you ever going to leave her?
I don't know, dude. I don't. That's a different story because with quarantine kind of going unabated, and I can't do this any longer. I can't not have social interaction, and in all kinds of ways, platonically, romantically, athletically. I need to be out playing sports or doing something physical with people outside of the fucking backyard. I'm not going crazy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not even close to going crazy, which is insane to me. I've gone so crazy and been on the brink of suicide so many times throughout my life when, like, ostensibly everything in my life was fine and in place.
And now you're literally
now the world is turning upside down, and it's like the happiest I've ever been. And I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like joyful every day. Every day feels like a grind, and I do not want to be in quarantine, and it eats at me every day that like. I'm questioning what I'm doing, but my day is just like it's placid and tranquil, and it's certainly not, the excitement that I want in my life and impulsivity and crazy adventures and new stories and new friendships and new girls, and there's none of that. But like it's just my day is easy, man. My life is so easy right now, so easy. Mm-hmm. It's the easiest it's ever been. It's too easy.
But I know that feeling too, even if mine wasn't necessarily easy because I was also working, but like I know the joy of like being with kids, but it's also like, yeah, I need to get I need to have something other than this.
Yeah, and for me, it's not for me. For me, for the past several years, it's not like I need the next degree or I need to pursue a career path. The way I've arranged my life over the last, I guess, really like 7-8 years, is all about flexibility to have new and novel experiences at any moment. Like that is like where I invest all of my energy. That's where I get my self-identity and purpose and satisfaction, is new and novel experiences, meeting new people, meeting new girls, going to new places, having new experiences. And in quarantine, all that is gone. But this isn't about me. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining at all. But yes, I do feel like I am I'm a gas tank that's overflowing with fuel. Like I have so much pent up energy. But anyway, the reason I went on that tangent was the rest of I was trying to juxtapose my life to yours. My life is so easy. I have no real responsibilities other than this easy baby 9 to 5.
Yeah.
The way I got on this tangent was the A, like your investment in getting the A. It's because your life is so real in every other aspect of your life. The A is almost like a game. It's almost like the fun. It's like it's like a reward for the reality that you're in day to day. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah, like I have.
It's like a trophy. It's like a trophy.
It's like getting the sticker. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, like you're totally right. Like if I got a B, it would make
no difference.
It would make no difference. Like nobody's even going to see. Probably, literally, no one will ever see this transcript, other than the people that I submitted to be able to be qualified to take the exam. Like no person that tigers me is ever going to ask to see my transcript.
Yeah, exactly.
Elliot, say hi.
Hi. Hello, Elliot. And that's a good transition. Let's start to wrap it up here. I know you've.
I love you, Uncle Ali.
I love you, Uncle.
Uncle
Hi.
what? Do you have a name? What's my name?
It's Uncle.
Just Uncle.
Uncle's name is Uncle?
Uncle.
Uncle who?
Uncle Holt.
Uncle Holt.
Uncle Holt?
Holt.
Uh-huh. That's what he says. Uncle
Holt. Uncle Holt. I'll take it.
I knew a Holt in college.
Love you too, nephew.
All right, I gotta go bathe some people.
All right, let's wrap up real quick. Hold on, let me get some last couple things out of here. I won't take more than 5-10 minutes every time. Let's wrap up here.
No worries.
Okay, so that's where your career path is headed. You envision that is where you're going to dedicate your professional effort for the foreseeable future. Like you don't have that. This isn't like a stepping stone to something else or like a temporary thing. As to the best of your knowledge and where you are right now in life, this is what you're doing professionally.
Yeah.
Once Elliot is in kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at least going to give it a shot because I'm doing all this stuff. It's very interesting to me. So.
Okay. Last couple things here. 2 primary inquiries. First one: what do you want for your kids? You have 3 kids, a third. Well, what are they now? We're now back in the school year, so there's 3rd grade and 1st grade, and then Elliot is in his what would be like -2, K -2.
He's in preschool, then he'll be in pre-K, and then he'll be in kindergarten.
So
what do I want for them?
Yeah, like what? I don't know what exactly by that. Like both professionally, academically, just more philosophically in their life. I don't even know how to answer that question, so I'm giving it to you.
I want them to have a really, I want them to have like a really strong education, and I don't want to see them like drop some of the things that like how I kind of how I was explaining that I did in my life. Resiliency, and also just like that, to see like people, not even the competitive side of it, but like people trying at things is admirable.
Right.
Not the part of it that's like, oh, what if I fail?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like, and I want them to have that like sense of adventure and wonder. And I think you've asked me this question before. Like, I love it when my kids express a genuine interest in something, particularly if it's something that like I had nothing to, or anyone else had anything to do with, because
Right.
that feels like it's like a true, just genuine individual interest.
Purely
and so like, yeah. And so whenever I do see those or they express those, like I lean into that and I try to support it, as best that I can. So like to use the examples of like Amelia with her, I mean, within reason, I didn't like go, like Amelia loves horses. So
yeah, where did that
take
come
horseback
from?
riding lessons. Like she just loves them. Like that's just her. And so totally.
I know, that's beautiful. It's
that.
like it's not like any of us
right.
rode horses or, you know.
Right. And I didn't go out and buy her a horse at age 5, but if I had easily had the means to do it, I probably would have. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, dude. I would too.
Yeah. Right. So, but again, like then you also are running like the whole like entitlement piece. Like I have to be considerate of that too.
Yeah, I mean, but there's there's things that she has. I mean, there's a horse. It's all relative, right? Like what?
Well, and the funny thing is, like a horse is
iPad?
intrinsically, a horse is intrinsically like a best case scenario if you can afford it, because it teaches such like discipline and like, I mean, the upkeep alone, you know, like the care involved in a horse, and like you were just saying, like an iPad, right? Like it's such a like real and genuine like. And she loves the actual care more than even the riding. So like things like that. Or like when Cora was like, I want to do drums, and I'm like, yeah, you do. And ironically, you wear headphones at a fireworks show. You know, she wears noise canceling headphones while she plays drums.
It's so crazy. Coco, more broadly known as Coco, is your middle child. She's the least. Is it offensive? Is it mean to say she's the least like you? That's accurate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the least like you.
Okay.
Like you and I are extroverts, and you know want attention, seek attention, or you know at least I still do. I don't. You know, you're not really seeking attention as an adult. I haven't grown out of it yet. She's the opposite,
but
right?
You identify as
like
18-month-old.
Like, say that again.
You identify as an 18-month-old.
I identify as a 17-year-old. And that's neither here nor there. And she also displays, once again, I don't mean to be offensive. Obviously, I love Coco more than life itself, but she has like these like autistic characteristics, like little ones, but like not overall. There's no major concerns about her mental health or whatever, but you know, like hates loud noises.
She has some sensory needs.
Okay, yeah, sensory needs. Like doesn't like, never liked like JoJo here. And granted, I think I'm conditioning JoJo in some ways into the person she is, but some of these things are natural, right? Nature versus nurture. Like JoJo, dude, JoJo is like a rag doll. She's just like an extension of my body. I could literally pick JoJo up by 1 foot upside down and just like transport her around during the day, and she would have no problem. It's like a little monkey. I toss her around like it's nothing, like upside down, flipping, throwing through the air, anything, and she loves it. Either A, loves it, or B, is just no reaction whatsoever, has no concern, never cries. Like Coco's the opposite. But she's like, it's so awesome, dude. Oh my God, it fills me with joy and love to see her, despite like these sensory issues, wailing away on the drum set with her headphones on. It's the cutest fucking thing in the world.
Well, and the reason she can handle it is because she's in control. She, you know, it's an extension of her own arm. Yeah, and it's an extension of her own arm, so she knows when the sound is going to happen.
Right.
As opposed to like when she's in soccer and they're in a circle and then everyone cheers, and if she wasn't expecting it, like she just collapses, or she spends 10 minutes with her hands over her ears in case they're about to scream in anticipation of it, like that kind of thing. It's all about being in control of it.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, I mean, my kids are all awesome, and they're all so different. Would you say about Coco?
I don't think she's long for soccer. Like, I don't think that's
You don't think it's going to last?
I don't have super high hopes for a soccer career, unfortunately.
Did you see Elliot?
That shit was hysterical. Anyway, no, it's so funny. Elliot, the youngest one, is the quintessential, like, fucking coach's class clown, coach's nightmare, teacher's nightmare. In this case, on the soccer field, just like totally being the center of attention and like a.
He just kept putting his shirt over his head, laying on the ground, and then punching his coaches in the butt. Like, that's all he did.
And the game is going on all around him, like zero.
All around him. And he quickly converted like a following.
Yes, it was hysterical. These videos were hysterical. Like, all the other kids were like, oh, damn, all right, well, what Elliot's got going on over there seems a little more interesting.
And he's only met these kids twice. Like, he doesn't know them.
Right. That's fucking hilarious, dude. It's so funny.
And he's half the size of everyone else.
Yeah, that's the other funny thing. He's so small. That's great.
It's not like he's younger. Like, he's just half the size.
That means that his personality is only going to get more pronounced, especially as a boy. It's like his personality is going to have to carry him. I think it's awesome. He's probably going to be super class clowny. I think it's hilarious. Okay, last thing.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned it. You're very extroverted. You're an extremely social person. So am I. Really, all of us are. And by all of us, I mean what I consider our nuclear family. Me, you, our younger sister Morgan, and our mom. We're all social beings. I think you and I are particularly so in terms like more traditional sense, parties, boyfriends, girlfriends, like really out there socially.
Mm-hmm.
And you live in like semi-rural, semi-suburban Illinois, which to me has always been shocking because it is not only sparsely populated, but very, what's the term? I can't think. What's the fucking
homogenous.
Homogenous. Thank you. Homogenously populated for the most part. Actually, it seems to be a burgeoning Latino population, which is nice. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that you're going to make it another decade and a half there?
I don't know because it depends on the day. I will honor what Ty wants to do in terms of his company and his career as long as as needed. If a day comes either sooner or later where we are faced with a decision on that front, then I think that opens up a lot more options and conversation. We've definitely had those conversations. We've even had conversations about like what could we do as a family to earn some type of decent living where, we could live in the middle of nowhere in a treehouse, whatever. So
yep.
I don't know. We do talk about how we don't know how happy the two of my most social being children would be in that type of situation.
Living in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be same thing because we've discussed that throughout COVID as a broader family, all of us, mostly via text, like entertaining, through quarantine, entertaining the possibility of us setting up like a family compound in the woods somewhere. And to me, it's always I'm totally into that idea in theory, but to me, it would have to be next, like in close proximity to a major population,
civilization. Yeah,
and I mean like. There's like sizable, like bigger than where y'all are living now somehow.
Right.
That being the minimum, like an actual, businesses, human beings, activity, progress.
Well, and that's kind of like, that's kind of how I've had that conversation with Tyson. I said like, it would always have to be kind of a compromise because it could never be fully like an island you can only get to by boat. Like it would have to be something where like, within 30 minutes, I can take our kids to a relative-sized high school, right? Yeah, and like supplement with things like that. So.
Yeah. All righty. I'm out of questions. We did it. We covered the full gamut.
Woo!
Thank you very much. This is now the third time I interviewed. The first one got lost in the ether. It's one of the few. I think it's the only one ever that just disappeared. I have no idea. Actually, the first interview I did with Cody just totally disappeared. So I did 2 with Mom. I did 2 with Morgan, and I wanted to get 2 with you, even though technically this is the third. So I'm glad we got in the books. And interviewing you is easy. It's like, I feel like I don't have to. Some of these interviews, it's efforting. You're really having to guide it. So it's beautiful to interview you. It's just like autopilot. I just kind of press play and you do the work. So thank you for that. I love you very much. I don't know when the fuck I'm going to see you again. We'll talk about this off mic, but hopefully Thanksgiving or something along those lines. It's crazy. I haven't seen. Actually,
I have my Kentucky cabin, so come on over.
Yeah, I want to. I know. We'll talk about that off air. But yeah, I actually did. I haven't seen Mom in over a year. I haven't seen Morgan over a year. At least when I left DC to move to LA, I stopped by y'all's place.
Crazy. Yeah.
I know. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I spent 5 days out there before moving out here. Because I miss y'all very, very, very much. It's crazy that I'm not seeing those kids. All right. I love you. Thank you so much for doing this.
I love you too. I'll talk to you soon.
Adios.
Adios.